Welcome to the Calder Farmstead.
Now the Ice Hawks back out to center in transition. Carlson with Quenneville 2-on-1. Right when Carlson comes, Quenneville scores!
Here's a chance for Herrick. He scores! On the face-off! Up in Zeminger. Pulled back to Werenski. Has it. Shoots one. Bounces off a man. 5 seconds left. Werenski. Another jam on the shot. Turning and firing. They score! They score! They score! Now they catch each other and they both go right over the top. Matching rights to one another. McDermott gets the helmet off of Cassie.
And now, with 9 minutes gone in overtime, the Bears breaking out right side with Bear. Looks like cutting to the net. Bear will score!
And here are your hosts, Cece and Sean.
Hello and greetings from the Mile High city of Denver, Colorado.
And Fort Lauderdale, Florida.
Ooh, very nice. Welcome to the Calder Farmstead Podcast, episode number 101 for Tuesday, May 17th, 2022. If you're hoping for a podcast featuring guides to composting, we are not going to be much help. This is an American Hockey League podcast, and my name is Cece Hockley, the AHL editor of Full Press Hockey.
And I'm Sean O'Brien from StatsTrack, and the AHL's only league-wide analytics guy.
And as always, we thank you for tuning in with us.
And if you're new to hearing Cece and I talk about hockey, we're going to recap some of the playoff series that have happened, give some thoughts about where guys are going, discuss some AHL league-wide news. We both watch a lot of AHL games. We're going to talk about what we see when we watch the film, as well as use some advanced stats to help us break it down. If that's new to you, you might want to head over to our podcast feed or YouTube channel, wherever you're checking us out from. Scroll all the way to the bottom and check out episode 0. It's a short primer on some of the stats we're going to be talking about, as well as how we view what's important on the ice. So if you're new to some of the more advanced hockey stats terms like PDO or the point shares model, or newer hockey terms like controlled zone entries, go check that out. So you better be able to pick up what we're putting down. I promise it's not that nerdy or technical. It's only 20 minutes, and let's be honest, you wasted 20 minutes downloading iOS 15.5. You should have bought an Android from the start, but here we are. You'll never get that time back. So next time, why not spend a little more time with us talking hockey?
Never have gone over to Apple in regards to my cellular devices. So for what it's worth. All right, well, quick programming note for everyone out there. The playoffs have had a schedule that hasn't suited our usual format thus far. Rounds 1 and 2 have been very staggered and all over the place, so it's been a challenge to decide when to record and so on. However, we're about to be down to 4 series remaining, and covering 4 matchups at a time is what we've done reasonably above average all season, so we should be able to make this work. Today, though, is going to be a lot of shallow dives around the playoffs as we attempt to catch up and do some quick and dirty analysis, as it were. Our deep dives are returning, though, so don't you worry.
Also, editor's notes, I will be away for the beginning of June, so you may see CC fly solo or have a bunch of guests or whatever he chooses to do. I will be on my honeymoon in Jamaica, and I'm actually pretty sure my wife would leave me in Jamaica if I tried to, watch games and record from there. So for the sake of my marriage, I will not be here for the beginning of June. So apologies in advance for that.
I don't think you need to.
Actually, I'm not sorry. That's just how it's going to be.
Yeah. You're going to be in Jamaica, and just to hop and a skip away from where you are right now. So, anyway. Well, let's tackle some news, because as we approach the AHL offseason, the news cycle starts to pick up even in the playoffs. San Diego cleaning house, and they're firing their coaching staff. They already have. They fired their coaching staff, and Sean has thoughts and feelings and commentary.
I mean, surprise was one of them.
Sure.
I remember when I saw that, I was just like, you guys literally booted Kevin Dineen to go get Joelle Bouchard, which was a move that we thought was bizarre to begin with, but okay, you do you, Anaheim, but this feels a lot like Pat Verbeek undoing a Bob Murray decision he did not like. I'm still really surprised, and I think Bouchard is a good coach, but I'm beginning to question his adaptability. It seems like he needs his guys to win, and that he can only kind of coach one way. And he also does not have a great track record as a developer in the AHL. So that's a little concerning, especially when you think about all of that. And Anaheim literally, again, booted Kevin Dineen to go get him. That's a surprising move. So, like, if this is Pat Verbeek writing a decision that he thought Bob Murray got wrong, that part of it makes sense. But to toss him after a year of a struggling goals team where he didn't have a lot of the firepower that we thought San Diego would have at the beginning of the season. We picked San Diego to handily win the Pacific because we thought they would have a lot more of the firepower available to them. But Vinny Lettieri played 24 games. Sam Carrick played 2. Sonny Milano played 1. Alexander Volkov played 2. Buddy Robinson played 28 games and shot 8.5%, which is almost a career low for him. So it's kind of understandable that they struggled. And that's not to say that Bouchard's team performed admirably in those players' absences like Hershey or Manitoba did. They 100% did not do that. But it's still wild to me that you gas him after 1 year. Like, I understand if you're Pat Verbeek and you didn't like this decision, but like, that feels very trigger happy to me. The only thing here that I can think of as a reason for why this happened is that Verbeek never wanted Bouchard, and this was an extremely easy, remedy to a hire he didn't like capital, letters did not like. The only other reason I can see for him pulling the trigger this quickly, and it's also why I think Barry Trotz got fired in New York, is that during exit interviews with players, Bouchard's name came up in a negative way enough times for it to be concerning to the Anaheim brass and lead to this. That's what I think happened to Trotz in the Islanders. And that was, oh my God, I can't think of his name off the top of my head. Elliot Friedman, who first I heard with that theory, but it does make sense. Like, as we need an explanation for why you would fire a coach that is otherwise pretty well renowned in the league. And, is when you're doing exit interviews and enough of the players are like, yeah, we need a new voice, or we need somebody else. Like, this guy is not doing it for us. And if enough of those guys are important prospects in your pipeline and not just, a 1-year contract AHL vet guy, that raises concerns for who's, manning your prospects when Anaheim is still very much in the middle of a rebuild. So those are the only reasons I can see for this, that that Anaheim decided to gas the staff there. Otherwise, if that's not it, this is very bizarre. So I really can't think of any other reason we're doing this. Like, I think it's got to be one of those two.
Okay, Sean. So this bears the question with everything that you just said. Who is going to replace Joelle Bouchard in San Diego?
Tough to say at this point. I don't think there are any really obvious slam dunk candidates here. But if we go by the old boys club way in which hockey coaches and staff are usually hired, not saying that that's Pat Verbeek's clear-cut MO here to do something like that, but given that he's, not a familiar face in the GM world, and we went strictly by like hiring your buddies model that a lot of other teams and places use, there are at least some names that make sense, that are guys that are connected to him, that have some ties to like him as a player, as a GM, as a coach, people he's familiar with that he would trust to hire here. Matt McDonald in Grand Rapids fits that mold. Joe Sorella in Stockton also, I think he doesn't have any head coaching experience, but he has enough AC experience in the AHL that I think he could at least be in the mix. He's someone that Pat Verbeek has, spent time with and knows. Eric Veilleux in Syracuse also seems like he could be a good fit. He's been a head coach at this level and is someone has connections to Pat Verbeek. So his name could be on the short list. I think Kirk Muller and John McClain also fit the bill in terms of they check a lot of the boxes that you would want for a hire like this, but they're currently NHL assistant coaches, and you rarely see guys go back to the AHL from an NHL AC job. Usually you go the other way. It's not unheard of to see that happen. The Flyers did it with Ian LaPerriere, where he was an assistant coach for them and is now the Phantoms head coach for, at least currently, he is the Phantoms head coach. But those are at least names that stuck out to me that I feel like if they got hired would not shock me. But I mean, there are always plenty of left field candidates. There are a lot of good coaches, at the college level. Nate Lehman in Providence is one that it feels like eventually someone is going to, put their brain in their head and hire him to a professional hockey job. plenty of good guys from the CHL that are deserving of a nod here that could take it. So it's a wide field, but I feel like those are the guys at least that if I had to make a bet, one of them seems at least like a likely candidate.
Going from one Pacific Division team to another, and now we talk relocation because it broke yesterday that the Stockton Heat are going to be leaving California. And not a big surprise here. The writing's kind of been on the wall. The murmurs have, even pre-COVID, the murmurs was saying, hey, Colorado College is getting a new arena. Maybe they could move to Colorado Springs, Colorado, and play at the World Arena. And, well, the pandemic took care of that. No more of that. Where are the Stockton Heat going to end up come 22-23, Shawnee?
I mean, I think for me, the one that makes sense, at least, which is to say none of this makes sense, but here we are.
Here we are.
I wouldn't be shocked to see Salt Lake City. Like, I think, because again, the Flames have bought an ECHL team and basically turned it into an AHL team before. They did that when they came to Stockton. So that's not, I think, off the table. From a geographic perspective, it's at least closer to Calgary. It's probably the next major city that they could reasonably put it in. Salt Lake City has a history of successful hockey there at the professional level. I think Boise also not an outrageous choice too. Again, geographically closer to Calgary, if that's the concern. There are also rumors about them sharing, Calgary with their AHL affiliate, which I'm not a fan of teams doing that. Like, I understand from a player perspective, like you're in the same building and all of that. But I also think too, there's something for expanding your, footprint in your market of building fans that are just outside, like, the home market, the home media market, to getting them to buy in a little bit more. If you can stretch that a little bit, like that's why I thought putting the Silver Knights in Henderson instead of Reno was kind of a curious choice. Like, it's working out well for them, but I would think that you would want to be somewhere that's, anyone who was going to a Henderson Silver Knights game was already a Vegas Golden Knights fan, like without question. Whereas in Reno, probably, but you get to solidify that more as kind of a foothold. Whereas like if you put them in Calgary or, right outside Calgary, you're going to get the exact same people going to those games that you would have already had fandom from. So I think Salt Lake City or Boise is a good choice for them on that. But you're right. This felt inevitable. They went past the deadline and then decided we're going to Canada anyway out of Stockton in the COVID bubble year. Historically bad attendance this year. But I'll say this for all of the shenanigans that Calgary's AHL affiliates have had going on over the years. The common denominator here, and the one that I think you can easily point to as the problem, is Calgary. Calgary seems to think its AHL team, they seem to think of their AHL team as an afterthought that they never really plan for or give support to. And let's kind of dive into this a little bit here. Let's go back to Quad City. Quad City, when they had the Quad City Mallards in the UHL/IHL/CHL, average attendance in that building for that team, 5,201. The ECHL's Quad City Mallards, average attendance, 3,915. The SPHL's Quad City Storm has an average attendance right now of 2,845 fans. What did the AHL's Quad City Flames average in attendance? 3,279. They're outdrawing an SPHL team by 434 people. Ouch. Like, that's when you have other teams that are in comparable leagues or leagues below you that are outdrawing you as an AHL team. That's a problem. But it's not like Quad City was alone in that, where they just had this weird thing where no one seemed to want to be a Flames fan. Abbotsford, probably a doomed location from the start. But again, who didn't see that coming? Like, I think all of us, when we saw that, we're like, really? Are Vancouver Canucks people going to go to a Flames affiliate game? But apparently Calgary didn't see that coming because they're the ones that put them there. Abbotsford's AHL average attendance, 3,607 fans. AHL's Abbotsford Canucks, 42-92. Again, team affiliation probably putting its thumb on the scale there, but that's a lot of fans difference. Let's look at Adirondack. The AHL's Adirondack Phantoms, who literally were in the same building with a similar, AHL product, average attendance 4,082. The ECHL's Adirondack Thunder, average attendance 3,066. The AHL's Adirondack Flames, 3,642. They outdrew an ECHL team that came after them by 576 fans a night. They got outdrawn by the Phantoms, who were bad there by a lot. That's Stockton. The Stockton's ECHL Thunder, their average attendance, 5,921. They had this building and a lower league team with a smaller budget right before Stockton came in with the Heat. Stockton's average attendance pre-COVID, so 18-19 and prior, 4,134. Their average attendance overall in the course of the Stockton Heat's existence, 3,507. That is the fourth market consecutively that they have been in where they've had other teams that have been in that same building, in that same market with either a comparable AHL product and budget or a lesser AHL product and budget, and they're struggling to outdraw those teams. It's in the 10 seasons of the Stockton Thunder, the Heat outdrew the worst season in Thunder history once by 26 people. It's hard to see those numbers and draw any other conclusion here that the problem isn't the market or the product or the building. It's Calgary. Calgary is the problem. They're the only common denominator here. They're repeatedly being outdrawn by those teams across different markets, different staff, different buildings. And this isn't winning or losing, like winning teams versus losing teams. The Phantoms missed playoffs in all 5 of their seasons in Adirondack and still drew better than the Adirondack Flames, literally the season before when they missed the playoffs. The IHL's Quad City Mallards drew almost 1,000 fans more the season after the Flames left, despite a 29-47 record. It's not winning versus losing. The Stockton Thunder had 3 winning seasons out of 10 in the ECHL and were still better attended. A lower level team with a smaller budget in the same building in the same market, and they dunked on you in terms of attendance. That's shameful.
And I'll tell you, the past 2 seasons that fans have attended Stockton Heat games. So you look at 1920, 2,781 people per game. You look at this year, and this year is the straw that broke the camel's back. You had 2 teams. Well, Stockton Heat, it's let's see, are they the worst? Yeah.
Oh yeah, they're the worst. They're the worst.
Well, barely. Stockton Heat, 1,713 fans per game average. San Jose barely ahead of them with 1,789 fans per game. So at least San Jose is getting a shiny new arena to draw more fans.
And I mean, San Jose was terrible. Like they were incredibly bad this season. Whereas Stockton was the opposite of that. They, were the best team in the AHL for the large, almost the entire season. Chicago passed them on literally the last game of the season. Like they were an incredibly fun team to watch. And it's just every time it was an empty building. And like, I'm not blaming fans here. Mm-hmm. Stockton has great fans. Like they don't have, a huge fan base, but like the ones that go to those games love that team. And I feel bad for them because it's not their job to recruit more fans. It's the team's job. And again, I would point to just be like, oh, well, this is the Stockton front office not doing its job. Yeah, well, it was the Stockton front office. It was the Adirondack front office. It was the Quad. Like, at what point is this Calgary's fault? And it seems pretty clear. Like, so, apologies to Salt Lake City or Boise or wherever else they decide to move the team, because apparently they're going to not give you anything to help you with. So.
Okay, so there are a number of playoff series that have already passed us by. But for the sake of completion, we want to make sure that they're covered real quick, even though it's going to be a little quick and dirty, as we mentioned earlier. But hey, we have some postmortems to cover. So let's get started with number 4, Wilkes-Barre Scranton versus number 5, Hershey. Friday, May 6th, Wilkes-Barre Scranton blanking Hershey at home. Well, at Wilkes-Barre Scranton, 3-0. Sunday, May 8th, Hershey beating Wilkes-Barre Scranton in Hershey 2-1. Monday, May 9th, Wilkes-Barre Scranton final 4-3 in overtime, and the Baby Pens winning the best of 3 series in dramatic fashion, 2-1. Our picks, I said sometimes a single reinforcement can bolster the team, and I went with Hershey. Sean, you said that they had the best skater in Snively and the best goaltender in Copley. Plus, they had more time and more staff to prepare. And you were going Bears too. Even the model, Hershey, 53.1% favorite with the model in the series. Sean, that was not the case. What happened, and how did Wilkes-Barre Scranton get the dub in the series?
Our X factor for the series was Joe Snively, and he played a period and a half. Like that's, is it even a Hershey Bears? Is it even the Hershey Bears this season if they don't lose a critical offensive piece at an important time?
Guess not.
That is genuinely the story of the season for them. But overall, Wilkes-Barre Scranton took Hershey to the woodshed in game 1. But I thought the Bears were the better team in games 2 and 3. Starting Copley in game 3, though, was absolutely a mistake with Fucale available. If this were Copley and Shepherd and Fucale was in DC and wasn't available, I understand how you start Copley there. But Zach Fucale is available and certainly more than capable as an AHL goaltender. He posted back-to-back shutouts this year. He could get the job done. But to start Copley in all 3 games in a 3-4 when you didn't need to is a clear-cut mistake from this coaching staff. Case in point, Copley let up 2 bad ones and looked tired in the game. Who realized you shouldn't start your goalie on back-to-backs in the playoffs when you have other good options? Drew Bannister in Springfield, Kevin Dineen in Utica, JF Houle in Laval. So this is, and I've been critical of Hershey, and their staff coaching, but not nearly as much as some of their fan base, who I think has taken a very wild turn of it's bad coaching, that's why we're losing, and not we're trying to score goals in the AHL with ECHLers. We've beat that horse to death already. But yeah, I think that the not starting Fucale in game 3, though, that was a clear mistake, and that's how Wilkes-Barre Scranton squeaked out a series that I think they probably should have lost. I thought Hershey was clearly the better team in games 2 and 3, but 1-goal game in overtime, that's a not fun way to lose. But for Hershey, I don't think this season was nearly a disappointment. That was a frustrating team to watch at times, and they certainly kept you on the edge of your seat, most nights, because they played a lot of just ugly 1-goal games. And we called that from a long time ago. I remember one of the last times we covered Hershey in the regular season when we talked about is this going to get better? And we're like, nope, probably not. They're going to continue to play a lot of these ugly 1-goal games where they, can try and grind out a 2-1, 3-2 kind of game. But and they're, they played a lot of games down the stretch on the road because that's the way they scheduled the season. So Hershey was going to have a struggle in the second half of the season. We called that a while, way before it happened. So we got that one right. But it's, I think given all the things that happened to Hershey this season, they performed admirably given everything that happened. Your top 7 forwards playing half the season is going to kill just about every team. And it did kill many teams this season when they had those things happen to them. But for Hershey, I think there's a good chance to reset going into next year. They have a lot of interesting, decisions to make in the offseason, I think. So let's dive into that real quick here. Because like I said, we're a little bit past due on recapping these series. Big award show that we did and everything. We wanted to let it sit and breathe instead of trampling on it the next day by recording. Also, it was exhausting to do. But at the same point, this is probably the last time we're going to talk about some of these teams, before the beginning of next season, unless they do something big and splashy in the offseason. So I want to get a little bit of closure. But looking ahead for next season, talk to me about who is under contract that's coming back to the Bears, or to the Capitals organization, at least.
Right. So Cody Clark, Alexei Protas, Riley Sutter, Mike Scarbosa, Garrett Pilon, Vincent Laredo, Alex Alexiev, Dylan McElrath, Bobby Nardella, Axel Janssen-Fjallby, the flow man himself, Zach Fucale, Hunter Shepard, Cale Kessie, and Joe Snively are all returning to the Washington Capitals organization that have either, made an impact or are going to make an impact for the Hershey Bears next season.
Yeah, it wouldn't shock me to see that this is the last time we see Axel Janssen-Fjallby and Hershey, because news just broke that, just broke, like a couple days ago came out. Carl Hagelin took a serious eye injury, has had 2 surgeries, and is never going to have 100% vision back. He's going to try and, do everything he can with the plan to play next season. But I think that's probably it for him as a career. And I think Axel Janssen-Fjallby performed admirably kind of in Carl Hagelin's role in DC. He's probably a cheaper option than Hagelin. So I could see them kind of making that move. But you never know. We've been historically bad at trying to predict where guys land in terms of roster movement and what teams do. So this could easily just be another one of those. We should stop talking about that. Restricted free agents, though, Brett Leeson, Beck Malenstein, Lucas Johansson, and Tobias Geiser. I think probably all of them come back. Maybe not Tobias Geiser. I could see them not tendering him an offer, him not signing or going somewhere else. But I think everyone else there, I think all of them get tenured. I think they all come back. Unrestricted free agents. Big list of names here. Shane Gersich, Brian Pino, Phoenix Copley, Cody Franzen, Mason Morelli, Matt Molson, Drake Rishma, Marcus Vila, and Eddie Whitcow. All unrestricted free agents, could walk and sign with anyone. I imagine Copley probably comes back. I could see him going elsewhere, but I think he's probably, sticking around in Hershey. I think he got a brand new set of pads and masks that are Hershey Bear themed. So be kind of weird to only, have those for like a 5 or 10 game run there at the end, but weirder things have happened. I think Brian Pino is the least likely to come back of that group. I think he's someone who I think could squeeze onto an NHL team. And the writing is pretty much on the wall for him in terms of how the Caps value him. Barely played when he was on in the bubble in the COVID season. When he was healthy in Hershey this year and the Capitals looked for call-ups, he was not appearing in that film. He's a dude who can score, at least at the AHL level. And I think he could at least be a useful 4th liner in the NHL. And a team like Arizona or Montreal or someone who's clearly going to have space for a guy who may be a fringe AHL, NHL guy on their roster, I think he, goes and tries to cash some NHL paychecks. So it would be surprising for me to see him come back to the Capitals. Everyone else, I don't think Matt Molson comes back, not because he signed somewhere else, but because he calls it a career.
Hanging up the skates. Yep.
I would be shocked to see him play another game. It's sad. I think Matt Molson's, a quintessential veteran of what you want to, be as a veteran player in the AHL at the tail end of your career. So it's always going to be sad to see guys like that hang him up, but it would be absolutely shocking to me if he was back next year. I think they probably stick on Eddie Whitcow for some reason. I don't know why. I pass on Eddie Whitcow. He seems like a good dude, but as even he admitted, he's not very good, but he plays hard. But I don't have time for that. I want guys who can put the puck in the net, and that's not really him. Shane Gersich, I think, probably comes back. Cody Franzen's the big question mark for me. I could see that going all 3 directions. I could see him re-signing. I could see him walking to another team. Or I could see him hanging him up. He has probably 1 or 2 more years left of being a useful AHL defenseman. And I think that may be generous, but I could see him hanging him up too. Morelli, Rishman, Vila could go either way. They're probably best for the ECHL. So if Hershey offers them a contract, I think they stick it out for the money, but that's about it.
All right. Shall we move to a North Division series?
Yeah. Another one that we are way late on, but that's how the playoffs have kind of been with our schedule, with the award show and everything. So we're going to be quick and dirty here just to, put some finality on it for Belleville fans here. But run me down what happened here, CC.
Yeah, number 4 Belleville against number 5 Rochester. Belleville, kind of their own worst enemy here because they beat Toronto, and in doing so, allowing Rochester to come into the playoffs. Well, why is that weird? Because Wednesday, May 4th, Rochester 4, Belleville 3 in overtime. Friday, May 6th, Rochester 4, Belleville 3 in overtime. 2 overtime victories for the Amherst, and Rochester wins the best of 3 series 2-0. Thanks for nothing, Belleville.
Oh, I bet Philip Gustafson regrets some of those saves at the end of the Marlies game now.
Oh, possibly. We say possibly in our house as a joke. It's not as a serious word. Possibly. There we go. Anyway, I picked Belleville. Sean picked Belleville. The model picked Belleville as 52.8% favorite. So, wait.
I just want to say when we made those picks, all 3 of us, we thought Michael Delzada played.
That is true. That is true.
Yeah.
Woo. Excuse me.
Fun edits for CC.
Fun edits for CC. So you mentioned MDZ. What happened here?
I mean, he continues his reputation for just being an A+ teammate and said nah to helping Belleville. We both thought he was going to be in. The model had him in. His absence clearly flips things. I think if I remember off the top of my head, he was worth 6% to Belleville, which is a lot.
That's a heavy,
like for one player,
on
that is a lot to flip a series for the model. And that doesn't surprise me given how valuable he was when he was in Belleville. He was probably the best defenseman in the AHL, when he was there on a per game basis. He met, the games played requirement. He would have been on ballots on our award show for best defenseman without question. I don't know if he would have won, but he would have very much been in the top 3. No questions asked. Our X Factor in Gustafsson, I thought played okay. But the big story here is that Belleville couldn't contain Rochester. And that's what we said. Belleville, if they win the series, contained Rochester in their top 6, and they turned the neutral zone to sludge. They did not keep the top 6 in check as Peterka, Malone, and Krebs ran wild. Ruotsalainen also huge impact there. But those were the big keys for Belleville, and they flat did not execute on them. That's pretty much it. They had a game plan. They didn't do it. Or they didn't do it for 60 plus minutes in 2 games. They had some good stretches. They came out hot in game 1. And it's funny when I was watching that game and I saw them go up 3-0, and I'm like, Rochester is not out of this game. It's 3-0, and I still believe Rochester can win. And sure enough.
All right, well, let's look ahead and see what Belleville has to deal with roster-wise and who they're keeping under contract, who's going to be a restricted free agent. They just have one. And who's going to be an unrestricted free agent. So let's get started with who's staying. Igor Sokolov, huge. Roby Harvente, huge. Cole Reinhardt, Angus Crookshank, Maxine Gannett, Parker Kelly, Mads Sogard the Wall, Lassie Thompson, Jonathan Aspero, Jacob Bernard Docker, Philip Gustafson, Mark Kastelik, Victor Loden, and Kevin Mandalese, the Mandalesian. Restricted free agents, like I said, just Michael McNevin.
I would be surprised if they tendered him, but then again, I was surprised that they took him in the first place. Although I will say, if he sticks in Belleville next year and keeps the same mask he had to finish the season, he will be high up on the ballot of the best mask 22-23. It's beautiful.
Take your word for it. All right. Unrestricted free agent. Sean, who do we got?
Andrew Agazzino, Logan Shaw, Clark Bishop, Scott Sabern, Zach Senishin, Chris Wilkie, Kobe Williams, Dylan Hetherington, Zach Leslie, Rourke Chartier, Jack Doherty, and Jake Lucchini. A lot of big pieces in there for Belleville, especially Agazzino, Lucchini, just even Scott Sabern, played a role in Belleville. I think, I don't know, Agazzino's been someone who's bounced everywhere. So that's a tough one. If I had to pick someone who I thought was the least likely to come back out of that group, I'd say Chris Wilkie. They traded for him for future considerations, and He looked strong in the beginning, but just never really seemed to find any kind of productivity. And I think at the end of the year, he was like a healthy scratch. If I remember correctly, he wasn't playing at the end. So if it's injury or a healthy scratch, either way, that doesn't look good based on what he did when he was on the ice during the season. So I don't think he comes back. I think they keep Zach Senyshyn. I could see a lot of the other guys kind of going one way or the other. Like I could see them keeping Rourke Chartier or Logan Shaw or Clark Bishop, but I can also see them going other places. So Lucchini is going to be an interesting one. Like I think he had like almost a career year, if not a career year. Yeah,
he certainly did. Yeah,
like if you're him, if you get an NHL deal or something like that, you take that.
Oh sure.
Nobody's taking a $200,000 AHL contract when they could have a $750,000 NHL contract. Like that's 0% of the population. But if nobody gives him, an NHL two-way deal, does he stick? I think he probably does, but I could see him walking. I don't know. Very, very interesting. Oh, like that team is going to look demonstrably different next season, I think.
Well, we're going to take a quick break because we got a guest coming on. So if you're just here for any of those series, we ask that you please stay on because we're covering the whole playoffs. But if you are just here for any of those series, we do thank you for stopping by. And we do ask that you subscribe to any of our podcast links or our YouTube page, any of our social media pages. We're talking Facebook, Instagram. We are at the Calder Farmstead on Instagram, and we're also at facebook.com/the Calder Farmstead. On Twitter, we're at Calder Farmstead. Not enough characters to do the Calder Farmstead, but yeah, subscribe, like our videos, tell us how we're doing, rate our podcasts, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google, anywhere you subscribe to us from. And when you subscribe, you can get episodes in a timely fashion as well. So with all of that said, thank you for listening, and please give us some input and some subscribe, some likes. We appreciate it. So hang on tight. We'll be right back. Okay, let's recap Rockford against Texas. And they only had 2 games. It was, hang on. Let me bring in a friend real quick. I'm getting ahead of myself. I tend to do that here on the program. But from Full Press Hockey, writer for the Rockford Ice Hogs for Full Press Hockey, Full Press AHL, and also her own podcast from Center Ice, Courtney Bauman. Welcome back to the show, Courtney.
Hello, guys. How's it going?
It's going all right. All right.
Going good. Thank you again for your quick little recording for episode number 100. We appreciate that.
Of course. I actually just watched that before I hopped on here today.
Awesome. Sorry we couldn't, find a way to give Arvid Soderblom more love, but yeah.
I was waiting for it. And then it just didn't come.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Well, let's talk about one playoff series that did come for Rockford. Rockford and Texas here. Game 1, Wednesday, May 4th. Rockford won 2-1. Friday, May 6th, they closed it out with a 1-0 in overtime shutout duel. Rockford takes the best of 3 series, 2-0. CC, tell me about picks.
Picks, Courtney, don't hate me. I picked the Stars in this one. Yeah.
What?
As she gives me a consternated look. I don't know if that's the right word, but it sounded good. Anyway, I picked Texas. Sean did not pick Texas. He picked the Rockford Ice Hogs. And the model picked Texas, but only slightly, 50.4% favorite, if you want to call it that.
Why?
Edging out. That's Sean's
very because I had to put 7 games of Matt Murray in there to do something. So
Fair.
I wasn't thrilled about that one. I thought Rockford should have been the advantage, but it's like, all right, I can't, just weight down Matt Murray arbitrarily because I don't think he's actually as good as but he played very well in this series.
He did play very well. Both goaltenders did.
I mean, let's dive into what happened here. We said that if Rockford wins this series, Arvid Soderblom and Lucas Reichel will need to be their best players. And Arvid Soderblom outdueled Matt Murray, but by the thinnest of margins. That's no disrespect to Matt Murray, who played, as best as he could in that series. Reichel wasn't dominant per se, but in a series that featured 4 whole ass goals, he scored one of them. And I think that's a pretty important part there. I think Texas was still probably the better team in this series in terms of just overall play. Like, I thought they were the team that maybe should have won, but Arvid Soderblom won the goaltenders duel that was this series. He was the finalist for best goaltender for us for a reason. I thought he stole this series for Rockford when I thought Texas was maybe a little more deserving to win the games, but Arvid Soderblom said no.
Look, I just got a notification on my watch for high heart rate, so you guys better watch what you're saying here.
Gosh. Okay. I remember me not to tell her my picks. To start off. Your heart rate is 135.
I know.
Maybe you should take some deep breaths.
Well, after
breathing.
Yesterday.
Yeah.
Anyway, so Courtney, what did you think about this series? What would you say was the story of how Rockford overcame Texas here?
I think the most surprising thing for me was actually on the Texas side, and that was that Anthony Lewis was nowhere to be seen. And usually he is, especially against Rockford, since, he played for the Ice Hogs, and I expected him to score against them since he tends to love to do that when they play each other. And he didn't get a point. And I guess, Texas only scored 1 goal against the Ice Hogs in this series. So a lot of it was Arvid Soderblom. But on the Rockford side, they played pretty much, in game 2, it was kind of a mess, and that was all on Soderblom to steal that game. But game 1 was basically a perfect defensive game from them, which is something we've seen a lot with Rockford this year. I know you guys have talked about it. If they get the lead, they can just shut it down, and Soderblom will make the saves that he has to. But that was definitely on display there, and maybe they tried to do that again Friday, but Texas, it was do or die. They had to win or their season was done. So they came with a bigger push, and the offense for Rockford was just not there. It just wasn't. Lucas Reichel did only score that 1 goal. It was the first goal of the series. And then where'd he go? I don't know. I don't see him. Alta Barmakian wasn't in the first round. He was injured. So there was that. They did get Ian Mitchell back for the first round, which was a huge addition for them because he was also injured going into the playoffs. So being able to get him back, him and Isaac Phillips made a fantastic first D pairing. So it really came down to them doing what they did well throughout the regular season, which was playing very sound defensively. And Soderblom did come up with a lot of big saves, especially in that second game, more so than the first one. But on Texas's side, man, as you said, Matt Murray played fantastic for them, but also the offense also wasn't really there for them either. Their big guys weren't creating a whole lot, but Rockford was keeping them to the outside as they did very well during the regular season. So it was just kind of either team could have won either game, and Rockford just happened to come out on top. Their goaltender made a few more saves than Texas did.
I think, too, this is one of the few series in which, we talked about when we talked about Abbotsford and Bakersfield in the first round of man, if the other side would have gotten a home game, we could have been looking at a very different series here. I think this is very clearly the one where it's just I look at it and I'm like, this,
yeah.
You played game 2 in Texas. I think that changes fundamentally how this series ends. But here we are, just not giving West Coast teams playoff home games.
It was very weird. I won't complain because I was able to go to both games. So, having live hockey and seeing your team win, fantastic. But the first half of that second game, the Ice Hogs were MIA. But after the midway point, they really woke up and had an offensive push themselves. And it was basically all Ice Hogs from that point until the end when they were finally able to score in overtime. But again, Matt Murray came up huge for them.
All right, let's look a bit ahead here for Texas next season, since this is technically their post-mortem. Under contract for next year for Texas, Riley Tufte, Ty Delandria, Brett Gardner, Riley Damiani, Adam Scheel, Dawson Barteau, Cole Schneider, and Oscar Back. They have some RFAs, some UFAs. CC, run those down for me, please.
Yeah, restricted free agents. You've got Riley Shea, Ben Gleason, Jared Roseberg, Jordan Kawaguchi, Nick Kamano, and Frederick Karlstrom. Unrestricted free agents, you've got Joe Secchioni. Did I say that right?
Ciccone?
Sacconi. Thank you. I'm putting an extra syllable in there. It's been a long season. Alex Petrovich, Joel Esperance, Anthony Lewis, Matt Murray, surprisingly, and Matt Jerusik. And I would say of the Matts, you probably go with Matt Murray, Jerusik.
Come on, no Jurassic Park.
Nice. He's more of a borderline AHL, ECHL goaltender for sure. But
I think he can be a useful backup at the AHL level. Matt Murray is, he was only on an ATO. So I imagine he's a UFA just because, he never really had a real contract.
That's fair. Right.
He only played 6 games to end the season for them, I want to say, but he won them all and got them into the playoffs.
Yeah, he basically just graduated college and took the first flight to Texas, apparently. So I imagine he and Lewis both come back. I could see Joel Esperance not coming back, but I think that's a toss-up. I'd be shocked if Petrovic comes back. Would genuinely be shocked if Petrovic comes back. I think he's gone. Ciccone, I think, is 50-50. The rest, I think they'll keep all the RFAs. I don't think any of them are going anywhere. But I think Matt Murray, Anthony Lewis, those are two locks for next season for Texas. But that will be it for this edition of Postmortems from the first round, even though we're about to start round 3 here. So thank you very much, Courtney, for coming on and hanging out to talk this. We will see you again shortly when we talk about the postmortem for your side.
Sad. Thanks for having me on, guys.
Yep.
All right.
We'll see you soon.
Yep.
Okay. Once again, we thank Courtney Bauman for coming on the show, and we'll see a little bit of her later as well. We had to kind of split that up. But next up, opening round series that we need to cover because we're nothing if not thorough. Number 2 Ontario versus number 7 San Diego. Wednesday, May 4th, final. Ontario 7, San Diego 4. And then Thursday, May 5th, Ontario eking out a win 3-2 against San Diego. Both games in Ontario, California. And the Reign win the best of 3 series. They sweep it 2-0. I picked Ontario. Sean, you were very much setting yourself up for failure, which you did. You went for San Diego. You went all in, and you have no more chips. I said good day.
Yeah.
The model went with Ontario as well as a 55% favorite. Sean, since you had a bad beat, as Scott Van Pelt said.
Oh, no, this was not a bad beat. This was a correct beat.
I know. This was a correct beat that you went with a gut feeling, and it was wrong.
I would at least say I think there were definitely moments when San Diego looked like they could make me look smart. They could not stick the landing.
No, they could not. What happened?
Lucas Dostal got murdered in game 1, and a fair amount of blame belongs on the defense in front of him. But you can't put up a 786 save percentage in a playoff game and expect to win. That's a no.
No.
But for 10 minutes of game 1 and good stretches of game 2, the goals certainly found some flaws in Ontario, though, and exploited them. Ones that Colorado sure seemed to be paying attention to. But in the end, the talent imbalance between the two teams up front was just too great to overcome. I will at least say our X factor in the series was Akil Thomas, and he scored 3 goals in 2 games. So at least that one turned out for me. But yeah, this was me trying to play 3D chess against myself. And I at least think that I had the right idea. But yeah, San Diego could not hold their end up of it. Where then I think I did the opposite and I talked myself out of the correct thing against Colorado. But I guess I was more concerned about looking foolish picking against Ontario twice. But let's finish up on San Diego here. We talked earlier about their mass exodus of coaches. So if you're just catching this part, scroll back up to the top there, rewind, or I guess there's no scrolling in a podcast. Drag the little bar or whatever and go back to the beginning. We talk
rewind.
We talk about the goals in their coaching situation there. But let's look ahead to next season here, and at least a very tentative look of who's under contract in the Ducks organization, who's a restricted free agent, who's a UFA. I'll start first here with the guys under contract. Drew Hellison, obviously under contract. Josh Lapina, Jacob Perreault, Blake McLaughlin, Braden Tracy, Lucas Dostal, Hunter Drew, Ben Olivier Grew, Bryce Kindop, and Daniel Regan, all under contract for next year. I imagine most of them are back in the San Diego side of things, but I could see, maybe Braden Tracy starting the year in Anaheim. Who are our restricted free agents, CZ?
Well, you've got Jacob Larson, Jack Bedini, Lucas Elvenis, quite a interesting situation he had earlier this season with Vegas and being placed on waivers to go back overseas and then getting claimed by Anaheim. And then Brendan Gould. And do you see Lucas Elvenis maybe signing back with Anaheim, staying stateside?
I mean, I think he gets offered. Yeah.
Sure. Yeah.
Oh, someone I forgot to put down on this list here is Nicholas Brilliard. Contract is up.
Oh, okay.
Yep, he is an unrestricted free agent, which we'll start. Nice transition there. Nicholas Brilliard, unrestricted free agent, along with Trevor Carrick, Greg Pattern, Brogan Rafferty, and Buddy Robinson. So
big names there.
Yeah, a lot of big names there. Carrick, I think, is the interesting one. I think it's going to depend on what Sam Carrick does. Sam Carrick, also, I believe, is an unrestricted free agent. I didn't include him here because he played literally one game for San Diego. I think if he's back next year, it's not going to be in San Diego. No, he signed an extension. He's staying in Anaheim. So I think you're likely to see Trevor stick around. I would be surprised. But then again, his brother's now in Anaheim and not in San Diego. So if he gets some other offer, Greg Pattern's another one who's bounced around a bunch too. I think he might, test the waters a little bit. Same with Brogan Rafferty. But I think a lot of it's going to come down to who they hire as a coach.
Good point.
Like, I think that's going to be a huge factor to see some of those guys come back. But we'll see. We'll wait on that announcement.
All right. From one Pacific Division first round series to another. And I got to watch both of these games. Colorado, number 3 versus number 6, Henderson. Wednesday, May 4th, Colorado 5, Henderson 2. Friday, May 6th, Colorado 5, Henderson 2. Colorado sweeping the best of 3 series. I picked the Eagles. Sean picked the Eagles. And the model took it easy. Went to the Hotel California and also picked the Eagles. Come on, that was good. 51.1% favorite. I got a groan out of Sean. I'll take that as a meh. Sean, I saw it, but what did you see?
I mean, Colorado grabbed early leads and just cruised to the finish more or less in both games. Henderson 0 for 11 on the power play against an Eagles penalty kill that was 27th in net penalty kill. Also not a recipe for success. Also, not only no Logan Thompson, but Yuri Patera for both games. I mean, okay, sure. I think I'd probably start Isaiah Seville in game 1, and if he doesn't play well, you switch back to Patera. But like, I don't know. I don't like that choice. But let's talk about Logan Thompson for a second here, because this is something that no one seems to have an answer to. Because you asked Brian McCormick, didn't you? What's going on with Logan Thompson? And he didn't.
He did.
Logan
not.
Thompson was in Vegas, like when this series was happening. He posted Instagram stories of him at like a poolside on the strip somewhere. Like you could see Vegas in the background. He was in town. He posted one of him flying out of town like 2 days after this series ended. So it's not like he wasn't available. He was there. He's healthy. He played. I think he played for Canada in the Worlds, didn't he?
That sounds right.
Yeah, I'll stall for you a little bit. Look that up to check, but I'm pretty sure that's correct. He's on the roster, I believe. But like, I nobody seems to have an answer for why Logan Thompson did not come down to Henderson. Like, it's a bona fide mystery, and nobody seems to know, and that's weird. Like,
he is playing in goal.
Yeah.
We've got a story from 11 hours ago on Sportsnet saying, he's making his case for a backup. He made 24 saves as Canada went on to win 5-1 against Slovakia. So he's not hurt.
No, not hurt.
Like, I was like, maybe he's hurt. Yeah, no. In town,
and like
playing for Canada. Maybe that's why. Maybe that's why they didn't send him down, because he was playing with Canada.
I very much am positive that the Silver Knights and Golden Knights organization do not give a flying rat's ass about the IHF Worlds and Team Canada. They do not care. They absolutely do not care. Like, they want success for their organization and do not care otherwise.
Sure.
But like, I mean, he was on the roster and was an emergency loan. So like, he should have been an instant return, right? The only thing I can think of is he said no, which why?
Yeah.
Like, that's, I don't know. Anyway, that's enough Logan Thompson murder mystery for one episode. Cece, what did you see from this series? I mean, you were live in the building.
Yeah, I mean, it was Colorado's big guns doing their thing. You know, Kiefer Sherwood, Dylan Sekura just being spot on the whole time. And like you said, their penalty kill has been eerily good. And a little bit of a spoiler alert, they continued on to their next series too, but we'll get to that a little bit later. But to just completely shut down Henderson, who doesn't have the best penalty or power play rather, you know, but Colorado's penalty kill is looking great. Not only are they shutting down teams in their own zone, but they're creating shorthanded chances. They are adopting the power kill, and it is really fun to see. Like, it is a blast to be able to see Colorado special teams clicking at the very right time, at least the penalty kill. The power play didn't do too hot this series. I mean, it was still pedestrian, if not dysfunctional. I mean, but yeah, I mean, Colorado just, yeah, I mean, they, like you said, they took the early lead, and, you know, they netted a couple empty netters. So the 5-2 score in game 2, yeah, it's a little bit padded, but I mean, they, yeah, Patera, and it was interesting. Patera and Annunen in period 2 for both games, like, cranked it up a notch, and they both played lights out. It was really weird parallels that they had going on there, but Colorado with more of the talent, the better team, you know, and not starting Seville, very odd, curious choice.
Yeah, to me, this just looks like the more talented team just overpowering the lesser talented team.
Yeah.
Like, and Henderson had like one of the most impossible paths to the, you know, Calder Cup finals of any team. Like, I think it was basically them and then San Diego who had a path that was just like, I don't know how they do it. Like, they might be able to squeak out a series win, but they have to play, you know, a very good team, and then their reward for beating a very good team is another very good team in the next round, and then the following round, like, it was they had the toughest paths.
Yeah,
but
murderer's row in the Pacific, as it were. Yeah,
the top of the Pacific is murderer's row. That's exactly the way to describe it. Let's look at a little bit down the road for Henderson next season. I'll take who's under contract if you want to take the guys that could be tendered and could walk.
Sure.
Does that sound like a fair division of labor here?
Sounds like a fair divide, yes.
All right, let's talk about guys who are under contract for Henderson next season. And again, that doesn't mean they show up in Henderson. They, you know, could go do other things, but they at least have a piece of paper that says Henderson on it, signed with their name for next year. Brennan Brisson, Sven Bartucci, Leighton Ahok, Zach Hayes, Caden Korsic, Ivan Morozov, Mason Primo, Isaiah Seville, Colt Conrad, Connor Corcoran, Paul Cotter, Peter Dilibatori, Pavel Dorofeev, Connor Ford, Maxim Marishev, and Yuri Patera, all under contract in the Vegas organization in some fashion or form for next season.
Restricted free agents, we've got Jack Dugan, Dylan Ferguson, Benjamin Jones, Jake Lecision, Danil Miramanov, Braden Paschal, and Jonas Rondbjergendy. Anyway, yeah, a lot of, I mean, you got to think Lecision, Miramanov, maybe even Paschal, Rondbjerg, and Dugan. I mean, you can see all those guys getting qualified. At least
the only one who I think doesn't get qualified is Dylan Ferguson.
Yeah,
I don't see that dude coming back.
That's fair. All right, unrestricted free agents. Jake Bischoff, NHL, unrestricted, UFA. Reed Duke, an AHL UFA. Jermaine Lowen, same, AHL UFA. Ian McCoshen, Alan Quine, Gage Quinney, and Ben Thompson. McCoshen, Quine, and Thompson, all AHL UFAs, and Quinney is an NHL UFA. So, a few unrestricted free agents. Who do you think is coming back out of that group?
That's a tough one. I could see all of them walking.
Really?
I mean, like, I don't think all of them will, but like,
Mhm.
I could very much see the only one who I think sticks is Ian McCoshen. Like, I think that if I had to pick the number one most likely to come back, I think it's him.
Mhm.
Quine's bounced around a little bit over the last couple of years.
He
and,
has Bako and now Henderson. Sorry,
If I were him, I'd stick. I'd stick around. He also played for Stockton too. And it's like,
that's right. Yeah.
and it's like, if you're gonna, just kind of take a new team every year, then yeah, he's gonna go somewhere else. Like, if I'm Henderson, I want him back, but that might not be the best offer he gets. Same with Gage Quinney. I could see him, maybe testing the waters here. I think Reed Duke is not very likely to come back. Like, I think if I remember correctly, he was Vegas's first contract signing ever.
He was.
But I mean, I don't think he's gonna ever be more than like a depth AHL player for them. So if someone offers him something a little bit better, I think that he probably takes that. But yeah, that's it for Henderson. Looking down the pike here.
Okay. Well, that's it for the first round. We finally got that completed now that we're knocking on the door of round 3. But again, an award show, a lot of effort, a lot of energy. Had to kind of take a step back and kind of assess how in the hell are we going to cover round 1 and round 2 when they're going on at the same time. Yeah. But let's talk about the former round 1 closing thoughts on the first go at the postseason, Sean.
Yeah, home teams in round 1, like teams that were, in their home building for the game, not designated home teams. Home teams in round 1 went 13-2. Teams that did not get a real home game went 0-8. All of them got swept. So maybe next time we find a way to give teams a home game in the best of 3 series instead of just screwing them. Texas and Rockford played 2 one-goal games in Rockford. If one of those is in Texas, again, we said it. Do we see the same result here? Do they still get swept? Like Abbotsford and Bakersfield. Do we see the same result there? A 2-game sweep if one of those games is in Abbotsford. Not to mention too, like, you're screwing the fans of that team. Your team made the postseason and you get rewarded by an AHL, a $30 AHL TV subscription that it was good for 2 games.
Yeah, no.
Is that what you want to do? I think that's bad business, but again, travel costs were too much to make this, financially make sense. Then why did you do it? Why did you expand the playoffs if you weren't going to give these teams home games? I said that question and we beat it to death, but yeah, that's my thoughts. 13-2 were home teams in round 1. We need to be giving some of these teams road games if we're going to pretend that this is going to be competitive in the future.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, we are going to take a break here. After that, we will get to the current round of the postseason, or at least the one that is not completely played. If you're just here for round 1, thank you for stopping by. Don't forget to subscribe to us wherever you're listening to us from so you get episodes in a timely fashion. Also, check us out on social media. Links to our social media and more can be found on our Linktree page, along with some other fun stuff in there at linktr.ee/the Calder Farmstead. I want to run some ads, pay some bills. We'll be right back. Stay tuned.
All right, it's time to talk about the second round and the series that have completed so far in these divisional semifinals. 3 series, I believe, are still up for grabs. We've got Charlotte and Bridgeport. That series still ongoing. Game tonight on Monday night as we're recording. Second one, Laval and Syracuse. Game 5 of that series. The all deciding game is on Tuesday. And then Utica and Rochester. That series, I think game 4 is on Tuesday as well. Rochester has a 2-1 series lead in that. So look at me keeping it straight without even having to reference my notes. Look at me go. All right, well, let's get started with Springfield versus Wilkes-Barre Scranton. Number 2 Springfield versus number 4 Wilkes-Barre Scranton. Wednesday, May 11th. It's a final. Of course it is. It was a few days ago. Springfield 4, Wilkes-Barre Scranton 1. Thursday, May 12th, Springfield 6, Wilkes-Barre Scranton 2. Both games in Springfield, Massachusetts. Sunday, May 15th, Springfield 7, Wilkes-Barre Scranton 6. The Baby Pens missed the extra point, and it cost them in the end. Springfield wins the best of 5 series 3-0. Now, we didn't pick this series on the podcast, but Sean did have a short Twitter thread about it, so he chose Springfield, and he was correct because Springfield, as the model said, was a 60.5% favorite. A wide margin, yes. All right, Shawnee. T-Birds moving on to the Atlantic Division Final. How'd they do it?
Well, I mean, a lot of things went wrong for Wilkes-Barre Scranton here, but I think they did some things right as well. Let's start with what went wrong first.
Oh, of course.
So we can end on a positive note. Wilkes-Barre Scranton's PK went from merely bad in the regular season to getting absolutely dunked on by Springfield, whose power play was merely above average in the regular season. Having to play Tommy Napier in a playoff series against a team that actually has finishing talent, that ended in predictable fashion. An .865 save percentage is never going to get it done in the playoffs, but Godspeed to Tommy Napier. They also struggled heavily to defend rush chances from Springfield, which never going to be a recipe for success there either. Especially because Springfield has forwards that have, some foot speed to them, but not so much the defense. But I do think Wilkes-Barre Scranton gave teams a good blueprint for beating Springfield in a series, though. They made good use of high cycles in the zone. They had solid forechecking that kept the T-Birds pinned in their own zone a lot more often than you would have thought looking at the score. But that echoes a point that I made about Springfield earlier in the season, that their defense doesn't have a lot of solid puck movers on it right now. When they have, the Scott Perunovich Painter and Callie Rosen, we're talking a different team. But as currently constructed, they're kind of vulnerable against good forechecking teams. The only puck mover they really have on the roster right now is Santini. He got called up to St. Louis, but I imagine he's going to be back in time for this series. That it was just kind of a precautionary call up because Springfield doesn't play for a couple days. Still, Springfield did what it should have done here. They were the team with the clear talent advantage, and they came away with a sweep in at least two, sizable margins. Game 3 coming back from definitely sleepwalking through the first period to get the job done. But it's some chinks in the armor that you saw for Springfield here that I'm concerned about going forward, as they're going to actually play teams that I believe in. But I don't know, like Wilkes-Barre Scranton, I still think had a good season here. They were not expected to go places this year. And the fact that they managed to, finish with the number 4 seed in the Atlantic Division, I think is a feather in the cap here. They took Hershey down after being at a pretty big disadvantage in terms of preparation and staff in that series. That was, a feather in their cap. Hopefully next year they get to have a full staff. That would be wonderful. If you're going to have new ownership and they're not going to throw some cash at you, I don't know what you're doing. But I also think too, a good rookie showing for, a lot of Utes that are coming over from Europe that are playing in North America full-time for a first big showing. I think good showings for them, and I'll be looking for big steps forward from them in the future. Certainly the Pittsburgh Penguins are praying for big steps forward from guys like Poulin and Legare and Puustinen, because Pittsburgh is going to be in a rebuild phase here in very short order. So having some guys to help jumpstart that work out for them as kind of found money picks, certainly a big tool here. So it's, I think, a good season for Wilkes-Barre Scranton, given what they started with and where the expectations were.
Let's look ahead to the Wilkes-Barre Scranton Penguins in memorandum of their season and in memoriam. Wow. Memorandum is something completely different. I'm not tired at all. What?
Say memorandum is
it's a memo. In memoriam.
Yeah,
there
in memoriam. Go. Yeah.
Sheesh. Yeah, Cece needs some sleep. Okay. Well, let's look ahead and let's talk about the guys that are still under contract for the Baby Pens. And I'll take those that are under contract. Nathan Legare, Sam Poulin, Jamie Devane, John Gruden, Sam Hood, Philip Hollander, Tommy Jack Napier. You ever dance with the T-Birds in the pale moonlight? Valtteri Puustinen, Radim Zahorna, and Drew O'Connor are all under contract for the next season at least. Let's talk restricted free agents. Let's talk unrestricted free agents with Mr. Sean O'Brien.
Restricted free agents here: Alex Dorio, Alex Nylander, Justin Almeida, Casper Bjorkqvist, Jordy Bellerive, Cam Lee, Nick Almari, and Will Riley are your restricted free agents. Obviously, the big name there is Alex Nylander. I have to imagine they tenure him at least. Like they give him a qualifying offer. Where it goes from there is, I have no idea. Like, I thought he looked good in the AHL level, but he very much did not, play at a level that demanded Pittsburgh look at him. Like, if I'm, Ron Hextall or Brian Burke, I'm at least curious enough, but like I'm giving him a 1 year, 2-way contract. And it's like at the end of that year, if I'm still in the same place I was at the end of this year, bye, Felicia.
Adios.
Everyone else, I could see, at least getting a QO. But it wouldn't shock me if some of the guys that are closer to the bottom of the roster there in Wilkes-Barre Scranton don't get one, just for, what are you gaining from keeping them around? Like, they are who they are at this point. Like Jordy Bellerive, I don't think is going to vastly improve at the end of his career. So I could see him not getting a QO, but I doubt it. He'll probably get one. Unrestricted free agents. Louis Domingue.
Spicy pork.
I just want to say, it's amazing how much we are starved for personality in the hockey world when a dude becomes an internet sensation because he ate spicy pork and broccoli. That's how like vanilla personalities are in the NHL and in hockey in general, is that Louis Domingue with spicy pork and broccoli was an internet sensation.
Yep.
Like,
he's like, you guys are crazy.
Yeah. Like he was like, it's a meal. It's fine. I think it's okay. Anyway, other unrestricted free agents, Juuso Riikola, Michael Chaput, Anthony Angelo, and Taylor Fadoon, all unrestricted, can walk. I think a fair portion of them do. I think Taylor Fadoon could come back, but I think a lot of them go. Domingue, coin flip. I'd be surprised if Riikola comes back. I'd be surprised if Chaput comes back. I'd be surprised if Anthony Angelo comes back. I think they were hoping for a more, like, they would be okay splitting some time in Wilkes-Barre Scranton, but getting time in Pittsburgh. And none of them really did. And I think all of them walk. Like, I think the writing's on the wall for them, for the same reason I said that I think Brian Pino walks from the Capitals organization. Like, there's someone who I think could maybe sneak onto an NHL team that's like an Arizona next year, or a Montreal, or a rebuilder that's just looking for bodies to fill on the roster. And if that means cashing a, NHL paycheck as compared to an AHL one, I think all of them take it. So I think you're going to see a lot of guys kind of in those shoes walk from their current spots. I think if any of them come back, it's Chaput. But all right, let's shift over to the Central Division, talk about the Chicago Wolves and the Rockford Ice Hogs series that was. CC, run me down. Well, hold on. We have someone to bring on. Yeah, you got me. I did it too now. Finally, you got me doing it now. This is what I get.
You pulled a CC.
You're a bad influence on me.
I am. I'm terrible. Courtney, get in here. Courtney Bauman back from Full Press Hockey and from Center Ice, enduring our shenanigans always and forever. We thank you.
Leaving me out there in the green room.
Yep. You pulled a Matt Damon on you.
All right.
All right.
Safety, run me down these games here real quick.
Yes. Much to Courtney's chagrin. Sorry.
Do we have to?
We do. It's part of hockey. Thursday, May 12th, final score, Chicago 6, Rockford 2 at the Rosemont. The Allstate Arena in Rosemont. I don't think it's called something different now, but Saturday, May 14th, once again in Chicago or in Rosemont, 4-1 Chicago defeating the Rockford Ice Hogs. And Sunday, May 15th, Chicago going to Rockford, Illinois, finishing off the Ice Hogs 4-1. Chicago winning and sweeping the best of 5 series 3-0. Now, Courtney, we didn't get to pick this series on the podcast, but Sean did have a short little Twitter thread about it, and he went with Chicago. And I'm sorry to say, but I probably would have gone with Chicago too, Courtney.
I don't blame you. I guess.
We are just breaking her heart into pieces on this
really
episode.
are.
I know, but yeah, the model, Sean. I know you love the model. What did it say about Chicago?
Chicago was a 63.1% favorite. They were a pretty sizable favorite to win the series from the outset. But let's talk about what happened here. I didn't get to see every second of all of these games, but from what I did catch, it seemed to me like Arvid Soderblom couldn't put on a godlike performance in spite of the Ice Hogs playing what looked like very atrocious defense in front of him. Of the 13 goals that were Chicago scored on Soderblom, I put 2 that were ones that I thought he maybe should have had. The Stelio Mateos goal in game 1 and the Max Lajoie goal in game 2. The rest of them, I mean, passes right through the crease, to guys on the back door, rush chances that had no business being there. Like, that was a lot of, for a team that played so well doing lockdown defense in this, they were not appearing in this film for Rockford. I said earlier too about how much of the season starting off games on the right foot was important. Teams that are ahead at the end of the first period win like 65% of the games in the regular season this year. Teams that score first also like a very high win percentage, I want to say in the 60s. And that the team that was the best at doing that was Chicago. And I mean, they were starting games hot in this series and then just plowed through. Like, I don't mean to pile on here, Courtney, a little bit, but there were definitely games where at the end of the first period, I'm like, well, this might be over already.
If eye rolls could kill. Oh my God. Courtney
Yeah. Courtney, what did you see from Rockford here that went awry?
Oh, Rockford showed up to this series? You got me. I'm shocked.
She thought the Indy Fuel was putting on Rockford jerseys and playing.
Look, I think the Indy
Wolves.
Fuel could have done better in this series than the Ice Hogs did, because I don't know what that team was. That was not the Rockford Ice Hogs. That was like we all knew coming into this series that Chicago was the better team. Like, nobody's going to argue that point. I'm not going to even argue that point. But what was that? I don't know what that was, honestly. And Arvid Soderblom was good once again. And I guess he needed to be, but it didn't really matter. In the end, we thought the offense dried up against Texas. They were outshot 20-1 in the first period in game 2. 20-1.
I genuinely thought that was a scorekeeping error. Like, no. I went back and watched that period and like kept count. I'm like, no, that was not, flagrantly wrong. Like, there have definitely been games where the score tabulators, the off-ice officials have maybe puts their thumb on the scale a little bit. And like, that'll happen. It's they're not going back to review and make sure every single dot on that map is correct. But like,
20,
I saw that 20-1. I'm like, okay, there's no way that is accurate. No, that was not unreasonably right or wrong. Like, that was well within the margin of error for, a human person doing shots live. Yeah. So like, that was.
And I'm not going to say that I also watched every second of this series, because I didn't, because I was also busy watching my Maple Leafs lose again in game 6 and game 7. But from what I did see, after the first face-off of each game, Chicago got the puck, and that was it. They didn't give it up. It was bad defense. It was bad turnovers. They couldn't do anything. And then I was at game 3, because that one was back here at home in Rockford, and I debated going. I was like, do I really want to watch them get swept in person? But, do or die. And at the end of it, I am proud of what this team was able to accomplish this year. I guess I'll go cheer them on, I suppose. But they did a little bit better. The shots on goal at the end was like 30-40, I want to say. Of course, in favor of Chicago. But again, no offense. They had 1 goal from Ian Mitchell in the 3rd period, I think.
Yep.
It was just mind-blowing, honestly. They weren't doing anything, and they had looked like they had really given up. Going back to that first-round series against Texas, that bruising line of Captain Garrett Mitchell, Dmitry Ospov, and Curtis Gabriel, they were hitting everything with a pulse, and that kind of set the tone for Rockford in that series. They were all clean hits, which was kind of surprising to me, but also I was happy about it. I was like, all right, they're not out here just trying to take guys' head off. They're just playing hard. That nothing of that sort happened against Chicago. I mean, there were some fights because, Rockford and Chicago, But otherwise, they just weren't hitting anybody. They weren't fighting for any pucks. They weren't doing anything. I don't know what that team was. It wasn't the Ice Hogs that showed up to play Chicago.
I definitely agree with you there. Like just seeing I saw, I think, all of game 1 and parts of game 2, and then I think 2 of the first and second period of game 3, and like highlights of everything. And like in the stretches that I saw, it was very much a like, wow, this Rockford team is just going through the motions here. Like it looked like they were the team that was playing, the second of or the third game of a 3-3 against a fresh team. Like that's what it looked like. Their legs just weren't there. Their hearts weren't in it.
They looked exhausted. It was weird. And they had time off too.
They looked incredibly exhausted in all of them. And it was just like, and especially too, going into that third game, it felt like you would have thought that would have been one, home crowds, back against the wall, that they would have come out with as much life as they possibly had left.
At least win one against their rival.
Yeah.
And while it wasn't as bad maybe of an outcome as the first two, it was the same score as game 2, but, they at least did something. But
I will give a lot of credit to Chicago here, because like the pressure was all on Chicago in this series.
Of course. Yeah.
But like they had all this time off. They had plenty of time to prepare. Very familiar foe, home ice advantage. And they looked at, like, if this was people's first viewing of Chicago this season, like they just saw the dominance on the AHL stats page, but didn't actually get to see what it looked like. They came as advertised. I definitely was a lot more questioning of Chicago at the end of the season. Like, yes, they're a very good team, but they weren't one where I was like, all right, I don't know how you beat this team. Like, I think there are still ways to beat Chicago still, and I'm not 100% sold on them as winning the West. Whereas a lot of people, it seemed like at the beginning of the playoffs, were just like, oh yeah, Chicago wins the Western Conference. Like, duh, what are we even talking about? Like, they're just going to roll through everyone. I'm like, maybe pump the brakes on that. Like, I could see Manitoba taking a 7-game series from them, although obviously not anymore.
Not anymore.
I think they're going to roll Milwaukee, but that's a story for another time. But like,
it was just truly baffling, especially since the Hogs went 8-3-0-1 against them during the regular season. So you thought, maybe there would be somewhat of a fight there, but that might be the easiest season or easiest series that the Chicago Wolves are ever going to play in the history of their AHL existence. That was anything that they shot had a good chance of going into the net. They were tipped in front. Nobody was clearing guys away from Arvid Soderblom, so he couldn't see anything. And
a bunch of passes too, just coming right through, that inner slot area. Like, if there is one thing on defense you need to make sure doesn't happen, it's defending the high slot from passes. Like, if you let passes go, across railroad and that low slot area, you're toast. And they let a bunch of them through, and it was just poor effort.
On the power play, they were just able to walk in on him and just fling pucks around him into the net. It was truly baffling. I don't know what that team was. I'll say it again. That wasn't the team that showed up all season.
All right, I think we have piled up enough on Rockford. Let's look ahead a little bit.
They deserve a little more.
Let's look a little bit ahead to next season here. Cece, run me down who is under contract for Rockford next season. That, I mean, barring some kind of freak trade or something like that, will at least be in the Blackhawks organization.
Don't tempt them, Sean.
and I'll tell you, it's a little different because most people put, they cover their head when they're in mourning, but since Courtney wears a hat all the time, she actually takes her hat off when she's in mourning. So seeing her without her hat on and her hair, just the locks are flowing, like it
got real here.
It got real. Like, oh,
does that make you feel better?
I mean, you do you. I'm just used to seeing you with the backwards hat on. I'm just saying, like, I'm not used to you not having a hat on. That's all I'm saying. Anyway, let's famous CC sidebar. Sean's like, come on, man, come on.
That's what I'm best at.
Yeah. All right. Under contract, we've got, Reichel, Connolly, Ian Mitchell, Hardman, the pride of Erie, Colorado, Josiah Slavin, Michael Tepley, Evan Barrett. Forgive me if I pronounce this wrong. Is it Busdecker?
Busdecker.
Yep. Busdecker. Yeah. DJ Busdecker.
Alec Regula. See, I'm just butchering stuff left and right. Why'd you give me this task, Sean? Isaac Phillips, Jakob Galvis, Nicholas Bodan, Garrett Mitchell, Carson
Gisevich.
Gisevich?
Gisevich.
Oh, wow.
Carson Gisevich.
Yeah. I always thought it was Gisevich. All right.
I got you. Maybe I should have read the names here.
Yeah, maybe you should have. Jakub, RFAs, you got Alta Barmakian. I know I got that one right. Wyatt.
Alta Barmakian. I was going to let you have it, but I thought I would, help you out.
Wyatt.
Kalnick.
Cam Morrison. I that one's a easy low-hanging fruit. And Cale Morris. Those are the only 4 RFAs for Rockford. I think I can do the UFAs. If not, I'm just going to wave the white flag and give up. Dylan McLaughlin, Ryan Stanton, Curtis Gabriel, Dmitry Ozapov, and Chad Yetman.
Look at you go. Good
yeah!
job,
Woo!
Cam Morrison also too is in RFA like black hole land because he's ineligible for an offer sheet. So basically he's unless the Blackhawks organization doesn't tender him an offer, he's basically like required to sign with them. That's the only way in which he can leave. Yeah, because he can't be offer sheeted. So it's basically just like, here is your league minimum offer sheet. Suck it.
Or I guess they just don't tender him. They're like, okay, UFA now.
That is the last bit here. So if you had to pick a UFA guy from McLaughlin, Stanton, Gabriel, Osipov, and Yetman, who do you think is the least likely to return to the organization as a whole next season?
Oh, the least likely? Maybe I want to say Ryan Stanton, even though he has history with the team, so it really wouldn't surprise me if he did come back also. But he was signed to just an AHL deal, so I'm just going to stick with it. Ryan Stanton.
My thought was Curtis Gabriel. I feel like he's, I've always said Curtis Gabriel, excellent human being, shithead as a hockey player. But
I'm just going to give him a lot of credit for the way he played in that first round against Texas.
He did exactly
honestly
what he was
kind of shocking to me as well, how effective that line of him and Garrett Mitchell was. And he had some pretty good scoring chances. Yeah. So it wouldn't surprise me. Also, he bloodied some faces in Milwaukee this season. So maybe they'll keep him around.
I could see that, but also like what he does feels the most replaceable. Like there are plenty of other guys in the league that do what Curtis Gabriel does. I think he's good for your organization and just, the attention he brings to a lot of the stuff he does outside the rink, as well as, being a hard-nosed guy in it. But I think he's also someone too that he's, someone who an NHL team might be interested in as a black ace or something like that. So
yeah, that one might be a little more up to him and what he wants to do.
Like I could see another team making him a better offer than Chicago and him walking. I don't think any of their RFAs go anywhere. Alta Barmakian staying. Cale Morris, I think they keep. Like, I don't see a good reason for them to walk away from him. And
this organization and their goaltending has always confused me. So I would say that I agree with you, but I have no idea.
All right, then. And I mean, everybody else of note is really under contract for next year. So we're going to see a probably very similar, at least names on the back of jerseys, Ice Hogs team next year. But I'm thinking you're going to at least have to either see some steps forward from some of these guys, or it's going to be curtains for them at the end of next season.
For sure. And they did take some steps during this season as well. They got a lot better as the season went on. I'm sure you guys noticed that as well, following the team. But especially after last season, the short season, after that off season, those guys coming back, you could tell that they had a little bit more experience under their belt, especially some of the guys who were snake bitten last year, like Michael Tepley and Alta Barmaki, and they had pretty decent seasons this year, although they did play with Lucas Reichel on that first line, so that could also have something to do with it.
Yep. All right, Courtney, where can people find your stuff? Plug where you may be found on the internet.
Oh gosh, well, you can find me on Full Press, of course, writing for Mr. CC over here, or you could find me on From Center Ice, that's at VF Center Ice Pod on Twitter, or you can find my personal account at Courtney Dagger on Twitter, or just go to FromCenterIce.com. There's links to all the places over there.
All right, perfect. Courtney, thank you so much for coming on, doing these quick and dirty recaps here about the Ice Hogs. One fun, one less fun.
Yeah, it is what it is. But thank you guys for having me. It's always fun talking to you guys, even if, my team doesn't show up to a playoff series. That was kind of important.
All right, then. Thank you, Courtney.
Thank you, guys.
All right, we're moving over to the Central Division semifinals, and we're going to talk number 2 Manitoba versus number 3 Milwaukee. We're going to recap that here momentarily, but we decided to bring a friend in, Jacob Stoller from Full Press Hockey. Welcome back to the program, Jake. How you doing, bud?
Good. Am I now classified as friend of the show level of guest, or because you said friend? So can I call myself a friend of the show?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
Yes.
I mean,
you can.
When we're going to be talking about Syracuse goaltender Hugo Alnefeld, he's also friend of the show. So if you come on the show, you are automatically friend of the show. I mean, unless I guess you're a dickhead, but you haven't been. So no one really has, which is surprising. Well, except for me, but that's
correct. but I digress.
Yeah.
Sean, let's run down the games of this series real quick, and then we'll get to some opinions here as to what occurred. So take it away, Shawnee.
So game 1, Friday, May 6th, Milwaukee won 3-2. Saturday, May 7th for game 2, Milwaukee won 2-1. Wednesday, May 11th, game 3, Manitoba came back, won 5-2. Friday, game 4 on May 13th, Manitoba won 7-3. And then Sunday, May 15th, Milwaukee takes it 2-1 to take the series 3-2.
Yes.
Brutal games.
And yeah. So we did actually pick this series. I said with no Ingram, who starts in net. So I picked Manitoba. Sean, you also picked Manitoba. The model picked Manitoba, 60.9% over Milwaukee. And we did not expect the Avalanche and the Predators series to go just 4 games. So Connor Ingram, welcome back to Milwaukee. And yeah, I mean, we'll get to that here in a second, but Sean, tee us up, and Jacob will of course pick your brain and get your opinion as well, bud. But Shawnee, start us out. What exactly happened in this?
I mean,
series?
just like we all predicted, Milwaukee got excellent goaltending from Devin Cooley. That's what we all said was going to happen in this series for sure.
Right.
Guy who was an .898 goaltender in the regular season suddenly, I mean, goaltending is voodoo, and this series can be filed under example number 4,742,981 as an example of that. But I thought Manitoba was pretty easily the better team in 4 out of the 5 games they played here. But Devin Cooley, stood on his head until Connor Ingram came in. And Connor Ingram wasn't even that great in this series. Yaroslav Askarov also, sir, not appearing in this film, which I think we were all surprised by. We would have thought, you don't bring him over from Europe to ride the pine for 5 games, but that is apparently exactly what they did. Manitoba looked dominant in a lot of the series and just could not get the puck in the net. Jacob, I'm really curious to hear your thoughts on how we got here with what felt like should have been a pretty handily won series by Manitoba almost the entire time.
Yeah. I think the real kind of hidden storyline of this series, and it's something that Mark Morrison, the Moose head coach, talked about when I interviewed him before the playoffs, teeing it up, was that their expected goals for was very high, but their actual 2 expected goals was not very high. They're not a high scoring team. And so, listen, they outshot Milwaukee. I would say, outplayed them in a lot of spurts for the majority. I would agree with you, Sean. 4 to 5 games, I think you could chalk up to being Manitoba. They were the better team. But what it comes down to is, and I kind of was looking at this before we got on, is if you look at game 5, right, they have a poor first period. And then from there, they kind of pick it up like they did in the other games. They started slow, but then they would kind of outshoot them and even outscore at certain points. But of their 20-some shots from the second and third period, just 3 of them were in the slot. Right. So if you anyone listening, if you go to AHL.com, go to game 5, look at the shot chart. It is as jarring as I am describing. So really what happened here is that game 1 and 2, yeah, Devin Cooley did a good job, but I have to say the Moose didn't really make it hard for him. Like, they made him look really good. I went through and, in partnership with Instat, I look at a lot of the clips there. I watched almost all the shots he took. I can't remember. I'm not going to say up a number, but I'm willing to bet at least, and this is generous, at least 10 of the shots he was facing were just easy glove, catch, whistle. So what was really happening here, I think, is what you were seeing is just sort of how their volume of chances and shots per se, which was their kind of identity all year long, it kind of ran out. They need to score at some point, and that's where it really stung for them, right? So I think if you look back at the series, probably, going off stats and models, most times they'd probably win one of those two games in Milwaukee, right? Then when they didn't, and given what I just said, and hey, listen, they came back, forced it to game 5. They did that. They were much better in games 3 and 4. But then game 5, Milwaukee, a veteran team, they just collapsed the middle. They absolutely took away the slot, and they outworked them. And Mark Morrison, in a piece that I just submitted for Full Press and will be out tonight or tomorrow or sometime this week. Mark Morrison kind of wondered out loud, being like, was it the lack of playoff experience? I don't know. And I don't know if it was necessarily so, but what I will tell you is in game 5, Manitoba came out flat. They came out flat and Milwaukee just pounced on it. So that's kind of, we saw in the NHL guys, a lot of series went to 7 games. And then at that point, it's a coin flip. Dallas nearly won after getting 100 shot attempts against last night. But I think what it really comes down to with the series was, I think that, Manitoba in this sort of series where Cooley aside with Ingram, right, they had to get some shots past him. They couldn't just have that cycle heavy plethora of shot attempts where, more times than not, you're going to get one of them to fall in. You had to be scoring on those goals, and they did on the power play, right? Morgan Barron was a beast on the power play. But at even strength, they just weren't able to get the pucks on the net in the slot.
I think Morgan Barron was one of the surprises for me from this series. I didn't get to see him play a lot in Manitoba once he got traded. And I was really surprised to see him playing on the power play on the sidewalls and the half boards and the outside. To me, he was an elite garbage man in Hartford. He was their net front, just, put the puck in, within 2 feet of him and he'll find a way to bang in a rebound or something like that. And that wasn't necessarily the way he seemed like he was utilized by Manitoba. And I was like, well, that's an odd choice, but it worked really well for him. He showed a lot of versatility in that series that I wasn't expecting.
Well, the thing too is I'm pretty certain at Cornell, he wasn't a garbage man. He wasn't. It was Jeff Malott who was the garbage man. So what I think too is you look at Morgan Barron, and again, this is a guy, Morgan Barron's a fantastic athlete. He is a really good athlete. I know he tested very well in the Rangers physical testing in the fall we're going to this year. You look at him and he's really he's sort of, when you watch a basketball player that's tall and big, but then you see them move fast, whoa, that's impressive. It's kind of like Morgan Barron too, because he's low-key shifty. And I think in Hartford, they sort of, it made sense, right? They were kind of tailoring him to become a Ranger bottom 6 player sooner rather than later. Fair. He probably will be a bottom 6 guy. At the ceiling, probably middle 6. But anyways, the Rangers were kind of molding him as quickly as possible to get into those games. Whereas I think the Moose, the difference is I think that what they saw, their scouts and their organization, is they realized, there could be a player here that could sort of maybe ride shotgun to an Adam Lowry on your 3rd or 4th line and maybe, for lack of a better word, drive play. And when I say drive play, I mean more so with entries, carry the puck in the zone. Right. And those little things. And I think what they did by putting him on the wing was they really gave him the ability to do that. And you saw it throughout. And, first of all, I agree with you, Sean. I didn't know that Morgan Barron could shoot the puck that well. That was,
from distance too. I knew up close he could find, rebounds and stuff, but I was not expecting him to snipe goals.
Well, they say the term heavy shot.
Yeah.
That was a heavy shot. Morgan Barron has some zap to it. So, yeah, I would agree with you that it was sort of a surprise, but I will say it, and my editor who is on this call, Cece, can attest to this. I was big on Morgan Barron going into this playoffs. And granted, he wasn't very noticeable in the 5 games with Manitoba. He had flashes. Let me be clear. He had some flashes. He had some good moments. But what was interesting is Marty Johnson, the assistant coach, was saying, I think it's really tough for him because, he's kind of getting used to the fact he just got traded. And this is no slight on Winnipeg as a city or a place. I love Winnipeg. I really do love it here. But when you're going from playing in MSG to Winnipeg, there's not a culture shock, but I'm sure there's kind of a damn, right? Because like he was a prospect in the Rangers organization. New York was his goal for however long, and it took him some time. But the way he played with the Jets, you just knew coming down. You just knew like this guy is going to come down. He's going to carry forth momentum and be a driver, which he was. And it was. I mean, you know, obviously the loss is super disappointing, but a development like that, that's invaluable, right? That's why they're playing these games to begin with. And Morgan Barron kind of having that leeway and that latitude to be the guy, I guess, for lack of a better word. I think it'll pay off dividends for them big time.
For sure.
Go ahead. Yeah. I just wanted to bring up our next point in saying, you know, as one that has read your work and, you know, gone through it with a fine tooth comb, I may say. I mean, that's my job. It's what I do. But right. I digress. I mean, you said going into the postseason that goaltending was a concern. You know, goaltending was about league average for Manitoba, and they needed to really kick it into an extra gear in order to be that Calder Cup favorite that, you know, that they were projected to be at certain points in the season. So long lead into this question, how much was Mikhail Burden a factor in Manitoba doing well or not doing so well this series?
That's a good question. I think if there was a better goaltender, the biggest X factor would be in those first two games in Milwaukee, right? Where, you know, you probably would have won one, if not both, if not for Mikhail Burden, to be frank. You know, I wondered, and I tried to find out, and I couldn't really nail down a concrete answer or sort of any sort of information, but I wondered around the deadline if you'd see another goalie come in, right? And I think it was 2019-20, whatever year Eric Comrie was like a waiver, like just a appetizer being tossed around. That was a horrible comparison. So just whatever that year was, Comrie came down and it kind of lit a fire. It lit a fire under Burden, which was great. But also, more importantly, it added some much needed stability. And yeah, the point being, I wondered if they would get someone to kind of settle it down, but they didn't. Evan Courtney was okay, good at times, more than serviceable. But to answer your question, CC, you know, I think we'd be remiss not to mention that, you know, when you have a sub 900 goaltender in the playoffs, facing such a low volume of shots, granted, guys, like this is a low volume of shots. I'd be stupid to sit here and say that wasn't a big part of the reason they lost, right? And now, as I mentioned off the top, the slot shots and the lack of getting the inside, that's a huge part of it. Because I want to make it clear, all year they played with crap goaltending. All year. So, and would they be able to win the Calder Cup? Probably not, guys. Like, let's be honest. I wrote it in the piece. The average finalist has the team save percentage of like 915, 921. One of the two. One of them might be the winners. Point is, you got to have good goaltending. Not even just average. Good. Moose didn't have it. So, you look at it from that angle, and yeah, you know what? Like, I think it's a lot of a different series when you have a goalie that can kind of bail you out at times, right? Because, guys, like, Milwaukee was really good defensively, and they were a really hard. They brought a good forecheck. They really did. I think they really overwhelmed them. But, like, are they there? Are they where they are now if it weren't for goaltending?
No.
So you look at that and you think, well, what could the Moose have been if they had more stability in net? And I think where the real, and just in short, the real reason Burden deserves some blame. I don't want to micro-analyze this. I really don't. But, and again, I want to make it clear. Burden had some moments where he had some good stretches. Mm-hmm. The bar is pretty low here. And I think that his giveaway in game 3 or 4 where he just passed it, we are in May now, and we're still dealing with this. And when I say we make, like, this is still, when you guys brought me on your show in like COVID, I don't even know. We were talking about this with Burden. The guy is almost refusing to listen. And what I say is, listen, I will be the first to admit, guys, I did not understand. I'm going to be honest. The benefit to playing the puck as a goaltender and how much it helps the breakout. I now can say, having talked to people, it's a huge advantage, and Burden's good at it. But with that said, there's only so many ways you can like try to like hide up the fact that this guy's an absolute maniac almost sometimes with the puck. And it was fun at first, but like when you have the best puck moving decor in the league, you can touch the puck, but you got to leave it, and you've got to be taking care of your own net. And for that to happen in the playoffs, I listen, I can only imagine the frustration within the room, within the organization. I mean, listen, if you're Mikhail Burton's teammate and you're seeing this happen throughout the year, whatever, but then in the playoffs, like, what are you doing? And I think it was really, and I think that's as much, if not a greater facet to the fact that, Burton really didn't do them any favors, to say the least.
I think from my perspective here too, it's like I didn't see every second of these games, but I got a good portion of them. And from what I saw, it's like I don't think Mikhail. What's that? You
just look at your model, right? Do you watch the games?
I know. I actually just look at the spreadsheets and let it tell me. Never watched any of them, but it, like from what I saw, it was like I don't think Mikhail Burton necessarily did like any of the goals that got past him were like real soft ones or anything. Like they were all reasonable chances that could have gone in. Like he wasn't letting in softballs. But like there were a lot of them where I looked at it, I was like, okay, like that's a reasonable goal to let in. But at the same point, like you need to be able to like I don't think he did anything wrong, but he didn't do enough right. Like there were a couple of those goals where it was like, it's not terrible that you let that in, but like it would have been really like that's what separates you from being a better goaltender is you have to stop a couple of those. And like,
the low volume of shots too, Sean. Yeah. As much as it hurt him, as much as it didn't help, it also, we have to realize it also doesn't help him in the sense of if he was facing more shots, save potential would probably be better. I would think. Like a couple
long stretches of not getting in the action.
And then he decided to just like deck a guy, right? Because he was bored.
I think there's a lot of that, but like if I had to put a percentage on how much of this series loss I put in Mikhail Burton, like he's probably the thing I would argue is the most responsible, but it's like 30%. Like there are a lot of other parts here.
Yeah.
But I'm not putting 80% of the. It's not like this. Like if they got a marginally better goaltending, they were definitely going to win this series. Like he needed to make like 2 more stops on. Still dangerous shots. And that's what we're like. I do wonder though, his ELC ends at the end of next season.
I think it's the end of this year, Sean.
What's that?
It's the end of this year.
Is it? I thought it was the end of next year.
No, ELC already ended it, Sean. He's on a two-way something. Yeah. He's ELC ended.
Oh, I'm sorry. I just saw contract. He's under contract for next year though.
Yeah. And I think it's a one-way next year. Something crazy.
Yeah, it is. It's so which is brutal. So his ELC is over, but like I have to say, if he doesn't make like a leap next year, I think we're gonna see the Jets walk from him.
Oh yeah, he might not. I mean, listen, I'm not gonna feel crap. I'm just saying, like, I wouldn't be surprised if I don't know. Actually, sorry, is he on a one-way next year?
Yes.
Okay, so never mind. He's not leaving that. But yeah, I was gonna say, like, I mean, after next year, barring a miraculous change and a lot of things. And also his rebound control is really bad.
Yeah, that's been a problem for him. And I mean, game 5, that one goal was probably the only one in which I'm like, buddy, you need to hold that rebound.
Yeah, but Sean, on the same, to your point before, where was the urgency from everyone else around him?
Yeah.
I get what you're saying. I just ripped on Burton a little bit, but myself, and again, I hope he's not looking to watch the Calder Farmstead before locker cleanout tomorrow morning. Great show, but not really down to deal with that. But some of the guys in this series were not very good. Dylan Sandberg, John Kovacevic were not very good.
Yeah.
So, and there was, and they were -6 that pairing, which is crazy.
Yeah, that is
how good they were. Like all year. And if you watch each of those 6 goals, it's not like it's just like kind of super plus minus. It's like they're a -6, right? Like they weren't very good.
All right. Real quick here, Jacob, we are going to pivot to look ahead a little bit for Manitoba next season. I'm going to name their RFAs and UFAs. You tell me, do they come back or not?
And this is the Jets, right? You're talking about
these are guys who are under contract or not under contract definitively going into next season that played, significant roles for Manitoba. So like,
Gotcha.
Leon Gawanke's probably coming back, but is he going to be on Manitoba? Is more of just, do you think he stays in the Jets organization?
Is he on a...
He's an RFA.
I mean, yeah, I unless he has some sort of offer from DEL back in Germany that is far better. No, I think Leon will be back. He's got some work to do in a lot of respects. I don't think he'll make the NHL. That's just me. I don't know what other people think, but yeah, I think he had a crappy COVID year, big bounce back year this year. I think they're trying to think, you know what, let's write off the COVID year and try to make next year the ELC type third year, right? Like I just screwed up my hair there. Oh god, that was brutal. So yeah, I think he'll be back. What
about David Gustafson?
Yeah, Gus will be back. Gus will be a Jet, I would say. Guaranteed.
Jeff Malott.
Yeah, I think Malott will be back as well. I think well, he's an RFA, right? So for Jeff, he's 20, he's gonna be turning 26. Jeff Malott's the kind of guy you blanking. I'm trying to think of a good like American League comparison. I'll explain what I'm going to say. I'm sure you guys of all people would know a good way to kind of contextualize this. But Jeff Malott's the kind of guy you want to captain your American League team, the kind of guy you want in your organization for a couple of years, the guy where he sets the tone. And to that point, he's also has some NHL utility. And by that, I mean as a call-up option, right? Like as someone that, he's not a Seth Griffith where like when you're signing him in the offseason, it's with the full intention of him being in your American League and being a very good player. He is a guy where he's a depth piece. He truly is. And I think he's don't think he'd be at a place if he played in the fourth line a couple of minutes a night, whatnot. Granted, I think that there's people that will leapfrog him. But I think Jeff will be back. Just a quick counter question. I know I don't want to take up too much time, but like how many times last couple of years have RFAs like it would have to be, you're saying them to not tender him, correct?
Not only not tender, but like, I mean, they can tender him and he can not sign it and just go to Europe or,
Well, no. Then in that case, Jeff is staying.
I mean, Jeff Malott won't go to Europe, I don't think.
No.
The one that I think is the most interesting here, and last one I'm gonna ask you about, because Kovacevic is coming back. I don't need to ask you that one. I know.
No. Yeah.
Christian Vesalainen.
Oh, I think he's done. I think Vess is done with the organization.
That was kind of my reading of the tea leaves too, but
yeah. I try to be careful here. I think with Vess, it was a situation where the guy got a insurmountable amount of leash at the NHL, and the one thing I will say is I think his biggest problem is I don't think he even realizes how much leash he got, and yeah, I mean, if he was healthy these last two games, not saying he was, not saying he wasn't, but let's say he was healthy, I think they would have scratched him. I think they would have put Luke Johnson and Bobby Lynch in over Best. I believe that. And I would actually stand pretty firm behind that. I just think that I don't know if we can swear, but his give a crap meter was pretty low when he came down. And it's just interesting, right? Because I actually think that he had that same thing in COVID too. Like 2021, he kind of had to like kind of demeanor. And yeah, he's a bust, and he will be a really good player in the Liga in Finland, probably for a while. And then I wouldn't be surprised if I think he's played his last NHL game ever.
Oh yeah, I'd agree with that.
I would be shocked if I would actually say I'd be shocked if he ever played North America again. And that's not even, I more so mean like I think that like he'll go to Liga, be pretty good, get a good payday, like he's at home, good hockey player, better than all of us, right? In grand scheme of things, but yeah, his career in North America is coming to a close.
All right. Well, Jacob, thank you so much for coming on here.
Anytime.
Appreciate you, taking some time to help us do the post-mortem of this series.
No problem.
Anything you'd like to plug while you got some time with us here?
Yeah. Follow me on Twitter, JL Stoller, Stoller. You can see my name. Yeah, I've been doing a bunch of writing and did some streams as well. I'll have some stuff in the locker room clean out and a couple things I've been working on for a little bit that I'm excited to really get out there. So don't want to reveal too much, but a lot of numbers. I'm a spreadsheet nerd, and a lot of quotes too. So yeah, but guys, thanks for having me. Really appreciate it.
Absolutely. Thank you, Jacob, so much for coming.
Problem. Yeah,
Cheers.
thanks, Jacob.
Cheers, guys.
Cheers.
All right. Real quick too, before we move on here, guys who are definitely coming back who are under contract next season for Manitoba: Mikhail Burden, Arvid Holm, Declan Chisholm, Villian Hanola, Dylan Sandberg, Daniel Torgerson, Henri Nikkanen, Mikey Isamont, Christian Reichel, Morgan Barron, Cole Mayer, Evan Poli, Jimmy Oligny, and Simon Lundmark. So a lot of guys, locked in already for next year. CC, they have some UFAs too. Tell me about them.
Yeah, they do. Unrestricted free agents. Nick Jones, Greg Morellis, Bobby Lynch, Luke Johnson, Austin Pagansky, and CJ Cease. All of them unrestricted free agents last year, so they may very well hit the market.
Yeah, especially too, I think it's going to be interesting to see because there are going to be some NHL teams who I think are taking a more general Patton-like strategy to their season next year, and you could see a lot of guys who are like fringe NHLers maybe make some moves to, a nice college arena in the desert to see if they can't collect some NHL paychecks along the way. All right.
Once again, thank you to Jacob Stoller for coming on the show, talking about the Manitoba and Milwaukee series, even though the market he covers, it didn't work out too well for the Moose. Though that last Game 5 night was not Meese night, and every night is Meese night, so that's saying something. Ouch.
364 Meese nights in a row. You got to have one night off.
Yes, you do. That's a lot of Meese nights. All right, number 1 Stockton versus number 4 Bakersfield out in the Pacific Division in the divisional semis. Tuesday, May 10th, Stockton 3, Bakersfield 1 in Stockton, California. Same in Stockton, Wednesday, May 11th, Stockton 3, Bakersfield 2. And on Friday, May 13th, lucky 13 for Stockton, 6 goals versus Bakersfield's 4 in Bakersfield, California. So Stockton wins the best of 5 series, 3-0. And we did not pick this series on the podcast for reasons, but Sean had a short Twitter thread about it. Stockton, he picked Stockton, and the model had Bakersfield as a 55.9% favorite. Why?
So the model has not been super high on Stockton for a while. And the model liked Baker. I think a lot of it is Bakersfield kind of plays a similar, not a similar style, but they get the job done in a similar way to Manitoba, where it's like they have 1 or 2 guys that are really good, but then the rest of it is kind of scoring by committee. Their defense is by committee. And Dustin Wolf powers a lot of that, but top to bottom, there are definitely places in the roster that, at least from the model's eyes, that aren't as impressive as Bakersfield. And the other thing too is I think at the beginning I had more of Bakersfield's roster being healthy than they actually were. Injury reports being what they are at this level. So I think that played into it a little bit. But the model has not been high on Stockton for most of the season. They think Stockton's decent, that they're good enough to get the job done. But, I think we're going to see Stockton be an underdog in a lot of these series going forward, according to the model. But we'll see. We'll see how it works out. But I picked Stockton. I thought this would be a much closer series in terms of I thought this would go 5 games. I thought Bakersfield was really good, and I thought they were a sneaky underdog to, maybe win the West. But here we are. In the first round, though, with Abbotsford, we saw Bakersfield as a heavy physical team that kind of imposed its will on the smaller, speedier, maybe a little more flashy Abbotsford Canucks. In this round, Stockton was the faster team by a much bigger margin, and they knew how to use it. Bakersfield had very few answers on defense for the speed of Stockton, and as well as how smoothly Stockton could turn plays north-south in transition. A lot of good rush chances for Stockton that they generated, and a lot of times, forwards turning corners on defensemen and charging in or separating on breakaways or, stuff like that. That was a big difference in this series, was the speed of Stockton versus the heaviness of Bakersfield. Both teams are capable of being physical, but it seemed like Bakersfield was not prepared for how fast, especially Emilio Peterson was. He turned corners several times in that series, and it was just like, I was surprised at how easy he made it look a couple times. Bakersfield did find some power play success against Stockton, which was surprising, not because Bakersfield didn't have a good power play or capable players at it, but more because Stockton has basically locked down penalty kills for the majority of the season. They were the best in the league and, put up a couple shorties. They have a power kill. But I don't think that Bakersfield to find that success did anything, special or unique. They, used good puck movement, created open lanes for shots, and guys were ready to shoot when they had those opportunities. That's not reinventing the wheel on the power play by any means, but it is noteworthy to see kind of anyone have success versus Stockton's what has been very stout penalty kill. So maybe not like the book is out on them, but more of surprised to see them find success in not a very reinvent the wheel kind of way, but just kind of that's how you score on the power play. You move the puck well along the outside, you create shooting lanes, and you have guys who are ready and capable to shoot. And that's pretty much what they did. In a less shocking fashion, though, Dustin Wolf outdueled Moonshine in this series. And while I've openly acknowledged several times that Stuart Skinner has made a lot of progress in his development, and that is at least a little bit surprising to me. He's gotten a lot better, but that game-winning goal in Game 2 was a Moonshine moment. The sheer lack of urgency that Calder, Sternay, and Skinner had in that moment was just jaw-dropping. It took a weird bounce, off the dasher, dump in, but all three of them reacted as if there wasn't a forechecker, there, and they could take their sweet time and make a play on the puck. And then all of a sudden, puck goes in and they're like, oh, it was very much unforced Three Stooges kind of error. And yeah, that was a Moonshine moment, especially too, to have that lack of urgency in the third period of a tied playoff game, on the road. That's a last note from me on the series here. Walker Dewar for Stockton made some big plays in key moments for the Heat, but also played a pretty large role in Bakersfield scoring some critical goals too. Dino Cambitz's goal in Game 1 was a result of his lazy effort. Holloway's second period goal in Game 3, Walker Dewar, his fault. Alex Peters burned him to tie the game in Game 3. I think the offensive output that Walker Dewar puts up kind of makes those errors a wash. I think he ultimately paid for those sins, but he should have been one of the heroes of the series with those goals, and instead is somewhere in the middle. And you shouldn't be, scoring big series goals and then still kind of be a wash at the end of the day of whether or not you were a force for good. And here we are with Walker Dewar. It's hard to watch those games in totality and be like, yep, Walker Dewar was the hero, when maybe not. Overall, though, this is supposed to be about Bakersfield and their kind of post-mortem, because it's probably going to be a while before we talk about the Condors again. So I think Bakersfield had a good season here. We said at the beginning of the playoffs, the top of the Pacific was treacherous. Probably the toughest path forward for any team was out of the Pacific, because they had to, there was, no matter who won the series, you had murderers at the top you were going to have to get through.
Oh, yeah.
There's a good fan base here in Bakersfield too, and they seem to do a good job marketing the team, at least from what I can tell, being nowhere near the Bakersfield market. They seem to do a good job getting the word out, getting a crowd. This year, attendance fell a little bit, but there are COVID reasons, and California had some restrictions, and yet they still put a reasonable number of people in the seats despite all of that, unlike some of their California contemporaries. But if I'm Bakersfield, if I'm a Bakersfield fan, I feel good about the season. It sucks the way it ended. You would have liked to, not get swept in the round by Stockton. But I think this is a head-held high kind of season. They're probably going to see a lot of returning guys next year. They should still be a good team next year. What happens at the coaching front, I think, is interesting. Do you have any idea if they, shift from Colin Schuck as the interim? Do you think they take the tag off, or do you think they maybe go a different way?
I think he kind of filled in pretty well, at least from what I noticed. I mean, I can't compare like the records since Colin Schuck took over from behind the bench, but from what I saw and from the games that, towards the half end of the season, or the last quarter of the season rather, and into, the postseason, you ran into Stockton, and that's a fair brick wall to run into. But without looking at his record, I think I wouldn't be surprised if they remove the intern tag for Colin Schuck.
I will say I don't think there's any way Edmonton doesn't keep Jay Woodcroft. Like, should that, they make a crazy decision and not keep Jay Woodcroft as the interim, he's clearly going back to Bakersfield as the head.
Yeah.
I said they could just let him walk completely, but that's bonkers crazy, right? Like, nobody's that dumb, not even Ken Holland. So I have to imagine they keep Woodcroft. I mean, he won them a playoff round. Like, how do you fire, an interim coach that won you a playoff round and not give him the permanent job?
And gives you the Battle of Alberta in the postseason for the first time since 1991.
Oh, let me tell you something. If Edmonton wins the Battle of Alberta here, which I don't think they will, I think Calgary wins that series. But if Edmonton wins that series, Jay Woodcroft probably has a job for life. Like, he's gonna need to do some stuff to lose that job. In terms of Bakersfield, though, like, how do you not give it to Colin Schuck? Like, he had a pretty good runway for an audition there. I thought he did a pretty good job with it.
Only lost 4 times in the month of April.
Yeah, like, I got to imagine he's going to get the gig, but, like, I suppose there's a chance he doesn't. Like, they haven't announced anything official, but I don't know how you don't give him the job. I couldn't imagine justifying that one, but Barry Trotz got fired, earlier this week or last week or whatever. So
yeah, anything.
People are out there making dumb choices.
Yeah, it's true. All right, well, let's look onto the horizon for Bakersfield. Let's take a look at their guys under contract. Sean, you take that. I will take a look at the restricted free agents and the unrestricted free agents.
Yeah, you see the names I have to say. That's exactly how it got there.
Exactly.
So you see the names I have to pronounce here. Under contract for Bakersfield, or should I say for Edmonton next season. They are in the Edmonton family of hockey. Most of them, I imagine, end up back in Bakersfield, but probably 1 or 2 that don't. Ilya Konovalov, he's under contract. So is Stuart Skinner, Philip Broberg, Vincent Desharnais, Phil Kemp, Michael Kesselring, Marcus Niemelainen, Dmitry Samorukov,
Ingaras? That's how I say it. Ingaras. Yep.
Seth Griffith, James Hamblin, Dylan Holloway, Raphael Lavoie, and Noah Philp, all under contracts next season. So they'll be either in Edmonton or in Bakersfield. I think Broberg probably doesn't come back to Bakersfield next year. The rest, Skinner probably, hold on. Let me look real quick here what their contract situation is for goaltending, because Skinner's probably at least going to get looks as the backup in Edmonton next year if they can do that. Mikko Koskinen's contract is up. Mike Smith has another year.
Oh, no.
But yeah, that's going to be, I can't imagine they bring Koskinen back. So Stuart Skinner's probably not going to be in Bakersfield next year.
Enjoy the moonshine, Alberta.
Do they make moonshine in Canada? Like, they have to, right? It's not just a backwoods American thing, right?
How are you now? Not so bad. And yourself? Not so bad. All right. Let's talk restricted free agents.
Unrestricted, yep. Or restricted and unrestricted.
Yes. I'll stop Soften. Tyler Benson, Brendan Perlini, all restricted free agents. Just those 3 in the Edmonton system. Unrestricted free agents. Hold on to your butts, because it's quite a list here, both in size and in magnitude. Anyway, Cooper Marody, Brad Malone, Colton
Sevier.
Thank you. Those are the only 3 NHL unrestricted free agents. The rest are AHL unrestricted free agents. You have Adam Cracknell, Devin Brosseau, Yanni Caldas, Tim Stoller, Dino Kambitz, Graham McPhee, Luke Esposito, and Alex Peters. So a lot of AHL unrestricted free agents. I think the most of the playoff teams that we have in memoriamed so far.
Yeah. Of that list, I think least likely to come back is Cooper Marody.
Stock is high. Test the waters.
I think he's kind of in the boat we've been talking about with all of these teams, where it's, when there were opportunities in Edmonton to get called up and get a look, he did not really get a lot of those. And I think he's going to see the writing on the wall and see if he can find an NHL job somewhere next season. Whereas, I think Cracknell comes back. I think Brad Malone comes back. I don't think Tim Stoller comes back, but I don't think that's shocking to anyone.
It was kind of a late season addition anyway from playing in Wilkes-Barre Scranton last season. Go ahead. Sorry.
And he for some reason just seems like, he didn't play a big role in that team, I don't feel like, and he's probably going to look for a place that's going to give him a bigger role.
Mm-hmm.
I would bring Yanni Kaldis back, but as a UFA, weirder decisions have been made. I think Kaldis is someone who could be a very good AHL defenseman, and I thought he blossomed a little bit this year moving the puck. I don't think they keep Peters or Cambitz or Brosseau. Sevier, I think, leaves, but just to go to another NHL team. I don't think he was probably terribly thrilled to be in Bakersfield when he played a long NHL career, but I could be wrong about that. He could, embrace the veteran mentor role, but I could see it going either way.
All righty. Last but not least, Colorado, number 2 Ontario, forgive me, against number 3 Colorado in the Pacific Division semifinal. Wednesday, May 11th. Yeah, everyone fell out of their chair when they saw this final score, unless they were watching live. 10-1. Boat raced. Colorado boat racing the Ontario Reign. Friday, May 13th, Friday the 13th, Colorado 5, Ontario 4 in overtime. And we will get to that game here momentarily. Both those games in Loveland, Colorado. Sunday, May 15th. This was the one and only game in Ontario. Colorado 5, Ontario 2. Colorado sweeping and winning the best of 5. I was going to say best of 3, but it was best of 5 series, 3-0. We didn't get to pick this series on the podcast because scheduling is wacky, but Sean did put a thread out there and gave his opinion. He said Ontario, and you haven't had very good luck with Ontario picks. Either San Diego in that first round, and
I talked myself into this one, to be completely fair.
Sure.
After getting shamed, rightfully so, for picking San Diego in that first series, I'm like, okay, I learned. Gonna take Ontario this time. When all of the things that I thought about why San Diego could upset Ontario clearly existed still in this series, but with a team with more offensive firepower to do the job.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't trust Justus Anunen as much as I did in Lucas Dostal from I believe in that dude can be someone in the future kind of thing. But this was not a good performance by me in this series, picking games for, I should have taken Colorado. I don't know what I was doing.
Well, that's okay. That's all right. What does the model have to say?
The model, if I have to actually pull this up now because I didn't put it in our outline. Yeah, it is correct. Ontario was a 51.7% favorite.
Wow.
And I think one of the things that I don't understand, if you're the higher seeded team, if it's me, you take guaranteed 2 home games to start the series. Because it's look at the spot that Ontario was in, getting, boat raced in game 1 in Colorado, losing an OT in game 2. You come back to Ontario, you have to win that game. You want a game you must win on your home ice, but at the same point, being down 0-2 and then, coming back home to an immediate do or die game, I take those home games up front.
And that's what Stockton did for their final matchup, but we'll get to that. Well, they're facing Colorado. No spoiler there because we already know Colorado won this series. So,
but all right, Cece, you were there. Tell me what happened.
I was there for game 2. I didn't go to game 1 and I was kicking myself for it, but it was in the middle of the week and I do have a day job. So, and it's an hour drive from Loveland from North Denver. But anyway, when you boat race a team 10-1 in game 1, the opposing team has to come back and make a statement in game 2. Otherwise, your series is going to be in jeopardy. And spoiler, the Ontario Reign did not. Again, not much of a spoiler, at least until the end of the game, and we will get to that. So let's go back to game 1. Colorado had 6 goals in the first period, 2 power play and 2 short-handed. They were a special teams juggernaut. They finished with 3 power play goals and 2 short-handed goals. So half of their goals were on the special teams unit. And wow, like where's this Colorado team been all season? So that was a big hole to fall down into. I mean, that goes without saying. Hard to recover, obviously. So let's shift to game 2. Ontario burning the tape going into game 2, and Colorado frustrated the hell out of Ontario. They did it earlier in the season. I saw it a number of times. Bowen Byram getting under the skin of Martin Ferk and getting punched in the head a few times for his troubles, but that was in the past. This game, they got under the skin of Ferk again. 10-minute penalty, 10-minute major. It wasn't a game misconduct. He didn't get kicked out, but he sat for 10 minutes of game time early on in this one. And to have one of your big scorers out like that, it hurt him. It hurt Ontario. And guess what? TJ Tynan got a 10-minute major in the same game. I've never seen Tynan so unhinged in his time in Colorado, in Chicago. He was losing his mind. Game 2, Colorado had versus Henderson had 12 combined penalties in the first period. Game 2 against Ontario had 10 combined penalties between these two teams. And, you know, it's like Henderson tried to dictate the pace that played Colorado a little more physically. Colorado, they upped the ante. They frustrated the hell out of TJ Tynan. They frustrated the hell out of Martin Ferk, and therefore the rest of the Reign. Like they were just even with Sherwood and Dylan Secura didn't play a game this series. Dylan Secura was out for all 3 of these games. Dylan Sherwood was out for game 2 because he was suspended for 1 game, some shenanigans in game 1, but the forward core stepped up. They put in Dalton Smith, who is much more of a bruiser, but hey, he fought Jacob Doty. I mean, if you're familiar with Jacob Doty, you know that's what he does. But yeah, Dalton Smith coming in, being a big bruising body, not just fighting, but being super physical and finishing his checks hard. I mean, yeah, the forward core stepped up big time, as did their defense, clamping down in front of Eustace Anunen. Dennis Gilbert is still out. Dennis Gilbert did also not play in this series at all either. So Rob Hamilton had to step into duty. The rookie on an ATO, Wyatt Ammett. He has been very serviceable, very good in this series as well. So those guys having to step up and step in. Yes. So the Eagles, they almost lost game 2 though, because with little less than 3 minutes, Garrett Sparks gets pulled from the net for the extra attacker, and Colorado committing a big sin against Akil Thomas. They left him wide open in the slot, and you don't do that against Akil Thomas, and he made him pay for it. Goal. Eagles were up 4-2 with 3 minutes remaining in the game. Akil Thomas scores, and Kachev scores with like 33 seconds left in regulation. They push the game to overtime, but the birthday boy turning 20 because he got 2 years of CHL exemptions, Jean-Luc Foudy. The man has 6 points in 5 playoff games. He's having a pretty good postseason. He's kind of coming into his own a little bit, but yeah, let's move to game 3. Sherwood comes back, making an impact. 3 helpers. Normally he's the goal scorer, but yeah, 3 assists in his return from suspension. Ontario just ran out of gas before reinforcements could arrive from LA, because if those reinforcements did arrive, that would be scary. Quentin Byfield, Phillips, Spence.
Yeah, big. Like, yeah. Colorado needed to end this series in 3. Otherwise, this series was very likely going 5. Another thing, too, that I think we have to point out here, like in game 2, was it Wagner was suspended along with Sherwood, right?
It was defenseman Andreas England, actually. Wagner was, yeah. Mm-hmm.
So no England, no Kiefer Sherwood. Like, if you're Ontario, you need to win that game.
Oh,
like, that
absolutely. Yeah.
The fact that it took them to, 2 goals in a miracle push to get the game to overtime, that's a bad look on Ontario. Like,
oh, absolutely.
Kiefer Sherwood is hands down the best player on Colorado. Okay, maybe not hands down. He's the best player on Colorado, but there are other very talented players in there as well. But like, you're missing their top forward and a valuable defenseman to them. No Dylan Secura in the series. missing other parts as well. You need to win that game. Like
Yeah.
that was a tailor-made on a platter served up to you W.
But the fact that Jason Megna, like he turned on his game. Shane Bowers, where the hell has he been? He's been healthy scratch. That's where he's been.
Yeah.
Shane Bowers coming in and contributing. Like he had a great cross-ice 2-on-1 pass to Megna in front for that fourth goal. And Martin Kaut producing as well. Like these guys showed up at the right time. So Ontario not closing, like getting that game 2 victory. It was, 10-1. That is a backbreaker, but not coming back and making a statement and trying to win that second game. They tried their damnedest, but Jean-Luc Foudy had other plans. And just a pass from Rob Hamilton right there in the slot and right through traffic. Foudy's having a good postseason so far. He's not lighting the world on fire, but he's doing a hell of a lot better than 0.4 points per game that he did during the season.
Yeah, that's fair. I will say, once they lost game 2, Ontario did, I was like, wow, that's probably it.
Yeah.
Especially that, you come into game 3 in a must-win game and, you start off down 0-3, halfway or a little over halfway through the game, down 0-3, and you got to try and climb out of that hole. Like that's.
My last point here in regards to game 3, Garrett Sparks. Yeah, they didn't do him any favors in regards to defense and but Matthew Villalta, he was recalled on emergency loan to LA. LA gets beat. He comes back. He is backing up Garrett Sparks. I understand that that's a quick turnaround, but he didn't play. So to put him in net, at least to give it a shot. What else do you have to lose?
I'm okay with that.
You're okay with that? Okay.
I'm okay with that. Honestly, if Garrett Sparks was healthy the whole time and was able to play, I'd have played Garrett Sparks the whole time over Villalta. But Villalta was not good this year. Like he struggled again heavily. Like even Ontario Reign fans were like, were giving, Villalta grief in, pages and messages and stuff. Like, it's when your fans are trashing your goalie that you're putting out there. Like if Garrett Sparks was capable of playing, like I thought he was hurt the whole time. I wasn't positive, but I thought that he was injured because he wasn't even on the bench for a lot of those games. Like it was Rennick backing him up.
Right.
And if you're telling me that Sparks could have played, I'd have played Sparks the whole time. I have a lot more faith in Garrett Sparks than I do Matthew Villalta to win a game. Like if we're talking about future ceilings or where they are in their careers, that's a different conversation.
That's different.
But to win one game right now, I'm playing Garrett Sparks.
Fair. Okay.
I don't think it's terribly close, but this is another year where a pretty decent Ontario Reign team just let down by goaltending in front of them. Troy Grosnick last year didn't play very well, and some of that, was on the team in front of him. This year, I thought they played better in front of their goalie, but Matthew Villalta did not get it done. And I'll say this right now: if Matthew Villalta doesn't make big, leaps next season, that's probably going to be by Felicia or trade Felicia or whatever.
Sure. Well, that's what we have to cover. And
let's look forward here though onto Ontario for next season. They got a lot of guys still under contract, some interesting UFAs, some very interesting UFAs, some very interesting RFAs. So this Ontario Reign team can look very, very different in October. So I will take you want to take under contract or do you want to take the guys that could leave?
I'll do under contract. Okay. We'll start with Samuel Fagimo, Jordan Spence, who may or may not be in Ontario next year, Tyler Madden, Helge Grans, Aiden Dudas, Austin Wagner, Alex Turcotte, Akil Thomas, Taylor Ward, Rasmus Kupari, Quentin Byfield, Kim Nusalainen, Samuel Helenas, Andre Lee, David Hrenek, and Jacob Ingham, all under contract. Whether or not those guys play for Ontario or Los Angeles, we'll see. But
I think Spence is the only one that I'd be surprised to see back in Ontario.
Yeah.
I think everyone else at least is going to spend, or Byfield too. Byfield's not coming back to Ontario. But I think everyone else probably at least plays part of the season in Ontario. On to restricted free agents: Jarrett Anderson-Dolan, Gabe Vilardi, Vladimir Kachev, Sean Dursey, Frederick Allard, Jacob Muvirara, and Matthew Villalta.
There he is.
From that group, I think you got to bring Kachev back. JAD and Vilardi are obviously going to get qualified. So is Sean Dursey. Allard, I could see, maybe not. Muvirara is going to get qualified.
Oh, yeah.
Villalta, I think, gets like a 1-year prove-it deal. Or like a 1 or 2 year, first year's 2-way, second year's 1-way kind of deal. And if he's not making progress, making leaps forward next year, I think he's not going to see that second year. Unrestricted free agents.
Here we go.
TJ Tynan, Martin Ferk, Christian Wolanin, Nelson Nogier, Austin Strand, Garrett Sparks, Brent Sutter, Cameron Gaunce, and Jacob Doty. The last 3 there are AHL unrestricted free agents, but free agents are free agents. They can walk anywhere they please. TJ Tynan and Martin Ferk, obviously. I've heard people say that Ferk's leaving. Like that this is probably it for him in an Ontario Reign jersey, which I don't know. Like if I'm Martin Ferk, if Tynan's coming back, I definitely come back. Like why would I leave one of the best playmakers I've ever played with who's fed me beautiful passes to slam into the back of the net to go somewhere else unless it's to an NHL team? I don't think there's going to be an NHL team that's looking at Martin Ferk. I don't think there's an NHL team that looks at TJ Tynan. I mean, they could, but I don't think I'd be surprised to see them sign NHL deals or like a 1-way NHL contract. Like they'll get some 2-way, to basically do the same thing they're doing in Ontario right now. But like, I don't know. Sparks probably doesn't come back. I don't think. I think he bounces. Cameron Gaunce, I think, bounces too.
Yeah.
Brett Sutter, I think, sticks. He seems to have found a good thing there. Been the captain now for, I think, 2 years running. I think he's part of the veteran leadership core that they're going to try and bring back. Strand, I don't know. I could see him going somewhere else. No gain will end, same thing. Tough call. But I think I was surprised that I was hearing, fans and others kind of around the Reign saying that they thought Ferk was leaving. I was surprised by that. Like they were doing that before the series was over, that this was it for Ferk in Ontario. Surprised by that. But
yeah,
like, I don't know. I think in the absence of better deals, both of them would stay. But again,
your moment of zen for this series, TJ Tynan, MVP, 85 assists this regular season.
Best forward. Yeah.
Best forward from us, of course. This series, 3 games played, 1 assist. Neutralized by his former team. Yeah. Just and frustrated so bad in game 2. I've never seen him. Like the fans were just all over him. It was.
I'm going to say it right now. I think this Colorado Stockton series could be, the winner of that series could be the team that wins it.
That wins the Calder Cup.
I think it could be. Like, I'm not saying for sure. I need to do some more deep dives, watch a little more. But the team that just shut down, 2 of the best forwards in the AHL against the team that, has been pretty much wire to wire one of the best in the AHL. I don't know, man.
Without their top defenseman in Dennis Gilbert. Like that's huge.
I think this is going to come that series in Stockton, and we'll do a full preview and stuff like that later. That series in Stockton is going to come down to one thing: is Justus Annunen good enough to? Yep.
Yeah.
Right.
To deal with Dustin Team Wolf, that's
like Team Wolf is going to be the better goaltender no matter what happens in the series.
But Annunen has looked.
Yes, but is he going to be able to do enough to win them that series? That's the question.
That is the question.
Because that's
who the Eagles are riding with. They're not going.
And that's going to be what the question is for the Eagles for the rest of the playoffs. Like, I don't think Justus Annunen is going to be the best goaltender in any of the series remaining for Colorado, should they advance forward. Like, if they have to play Chicago, I don't think he's better than Alex Lyon or Kochev or any of the goalies that they could reasonably start. You know, I think he's going to be the second fiddle goaltender in every series. So the question is going to be for Colorado the rest of the way. Is Justus Annunen good enough to get the job done for the rest of Colorado to do its thing? That's going to be it.
There you go.
All right. That's all we got.
That's all we got. That's it for the show. Thank you for tuning in, watching, and or listening. The Calder Farmstead is part of the Full Press Radio Network. You can listen to this and several other great hockey, sports, and pro wrestling programs or sports entertainment in certain circles. All that programming at fullpresscoverage.com. Just click on the podcast drop-down menu in the top right portion of the website. That's the list populating. You know the drill. And enjoy. And of course, thank you for tuning in with us with a lot of other great programming out there, hockey and otherwise, sports and otherwise, Full Press Hockey and otherwise. Thank you for enjoying us at the Calder Farmstead.
And if you guys are enjoying us at the Calder Farmstead, please make sure you subscribe so you get episodes in a timely fashion. Also, if you're listening on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or Amazon, please rate and review the podcast. Or if you're watching on YouTube, like the video, comment what you thought of the episode. Doing so helps others find the show. Your reviews help us improve it. You can also follow the show on social media at Calder Farmstead, on Twitter at The Calder Farmstead, on Instagram and Facebook. Links to all of that and more can be found on our Linktree page at linktr.ee/The Calder Farmstead. Big thanks to Adrian Drake, who made our theme music. You can find him on social media at AD_dysfunction. That's AD_DYSFUNCTION. So we can make music for you too. Cece, where can people find you?
My name is CC Hockley. You can find me representing Full Press Hockey on Twitter at FPC_AHL. A lot of news and playoff breaking series news, scores, everything is at that account. My personal Twitter account is at CC Hawk. That's SEESEEHAWK. Mainly hockey tweets, but music, movies, Wordle scores. Hopefully, if it keeps me interested, it's not going to be bullshit for you. Check out my writing on the Full Press Coverage Network at fullpresshockey.com. Shawnee, enough about me. Where can the people find you?
I'm Sean O'Brien. You can find me on Twitter at Sean O'Brien81. That's SEANOBRIEN81. I'm also on Instagram at Sean O'Brien_81. Both are personal accounts. My Twitter, if you're a hockey fan, is probably going to be the one you're more interested in, as my Instagram is more the world around me in picture form. I do the jersey of the day on there. This was today's jersey, which I think I forgot to put up. It's been a day. But yeah, that is my social media stuff. My Twitter, mostly hockey. My Instagram, mostly random things. You can also find all of my stats work at Tableau. All of the graphs, the model, all of that stuff. It's growing and growing. And it's probably only going to get bigger as I become more mad science-y about it. You can find all of that at bit.ly/datadump-and-chase, all lowercase, all one word. CC, it is late as hell. Please take us home.
That will do it for episode number 101. And no, we're not talking introductory college courses. For Sean O'Brien, I'm CC Hockley. We thank you for tuning in. And as always, keep your stick on the ice, especially in the playoffs.